You look great, man. You look.
He's just making fun. He's just making fun of me because I don't have any hair.
Funny story. I forgot to take a brush to frickin' Table Rock, so I combed my beard and all this hair with a beard comb every single day. Taking knots out with when I get off the lake every day for 4 days.
I don't feel bad for you.
I don't.
You're sweating. You're sweating. That's called cardio, man. When you start.
That's right. That's right.
It's better than a fork. Though,
See, but when I get out of the shower, I still like whip it back like I got some, just to make my.
That's awesome.
Feel good.
That's awesome. I have to change with all this hair on my head. I got to change my nickname in hockey was Fuzzy because I always kept that perfect Velcro length. So I played goalie, so my helmet wouldn't move on my head because I got sick when I'm a sweater, man. I sweat hard, so that helmet. So I finally just grew the hair to Velcro length and it just stuck right in place. So
see, that's like that's sock cap or toboggan hair length for me. Like the worst part about shaving your head, like because I slick mine off, is that first day you put a sock cap on, it just whoop right off the top, like it doesn't hang on or nothing. But once you get a little bit of stubble, it's like Velcro. You can't pull the thing off if you try.
Right. That's what I'm talking about. I used to shave my head on purpose back in the day too. But I mean, I still had all my hair and everything. And I found I hit my head on stuff getting in the car.
Hurts so bad.
It's weird. It's weird. It's like a cat. I guess you got that hair up there, not to bonk your head. But
yeah,
it's like the buffer.
So we're live, man. Everybody out there, thanks for hanging out with us. We're talking about like hair. I don't know. It just kind of happened. So that's the first part of the segment is about men's hair.
Well, so we got like every spectrum, right? We got a lot of hair with El Conquistador.
Yes.
We have
mid hair,
and then we have no hair.
But we all got facial hair too.
That's right. That's right. I try my damnedest to grow something, but it's tough.
Yeah. I can't get mine. This has been this way for like 3 years. It just won't get longer. I don't know what you do.
You haven't cut it or anything?
No. Oh, I mean, I have it slightly trimmed, but just they asked me how I want it shaped. I was like, I don't make me look less homeless. I don't know. Just don't take too much length off and make me look less homeless. That's what I tell them when I go.
So
that's funny. Do they have the little? I remember when I was a kid, there used to be like pictures on the wall of the haircut styles.
Yeah.
So
I should
do less homeless style. I wonder if they got that picture up there somewhere.
I remember.
If not, we should definitely come up with a book that has it. I think for sure.
I remember looking at the books of them. And like, I want that. My mom's like, you don't have enough hair for that. And I'm like, yeah, true. You're right.
Yeah. I got the gal. Oh man, they're so popular now.
Yeah. Did you ever have
Oh, hell yeah. I had a glorious Alabama waterfall when I was in high school. Yeah. I mean, and it was funny because my mom said, at least you got to cut your bangs. And I didn't go mullet. I left all long and I cut bangs like a chick would. And God, I look back at that. I was like, that is the most awful haircut.
So was it like the door? You just went up?
Yeah. It was like a curtain. It was like a curtain. I had long hair down to my shoulders everywhere except for my bangs. My mom said, I want to be able to see your eyes.
That's like Tommy Hilfiger stuff or Louis Vuitton or something like that. Runway quality.
I tell you what, the worst that I see is now, because I coach baseball and I got all these kids that have not shoulder length hair because they're all in school and they can't have that shoulder length hair. They have it trimmed up a little bit. But when they do this and they flip their head, oh my God.
Dude, I coached middle school football and there's this one kid, and I will not mention his name, but everybody that knows will know who I'm talking about. I was like, dude, you're not that pretty. He would take his helmet off and do the whole shaking his head thing. And he played baseball also, and he was a good baseball player and a pretty decent football player. But yeah, it was funny, man. It looked like he was coming out of the water in a freaking 80s movie or something every time. And the mullet is back strong. Swindle at the Toyota tournament was emceeing this year because Mercer couldn't make it. And woo, he was lighting up the Drury fishing team. One dude had that mullet flow going. And in a lull, every time I went to a lull in the bag line, G just turned to that kid and kind of made him. It was awesome. He does such a good job. I mean, there's no doubt that if he wanted to stop fishing today, he could have a career in being an MC for whatever you told him to go up there and MC. So,
well, he's just got that personality that's infectious.
Look at Phil's comment. 66 and ear hair.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I didn't lose all mine. It just migrates to other places.
Swindle made a joke about that. If his stock market grew as fast as his ear hair, he'd be in good shape.
And it's always like one random one that just like pops up out of nowhere for me.
I found a beer hair before that I pulled down. It just went to my belly button, just like up in there somewhere.
Like it's been hiding out, just circling around for days, months.
Yeah, it sounds like that sounds like a Mexican restaurant. It's like a bunch of different pictures, and it's pretty much all the same.
Yeah, all the same. Yeah, it's just in different shapes. Do you want it flat, wrapped, grilled? Right. Yeah, it's all
fried, whatever. Yeah. Yeah. So we got Mike on the other end. Obviously, I'm going to go back up to the top because I started the show off with a question, which I've kind of been doing that.
I didn't see it. I blinked.
What temperature is too cold to fish in? And
when the water's hard.
Yeah, that's kind of what Gary was saying. He said the question will be better answered by the guys.
When your lure bounces, it doesn't go through. That's when it's too cold.
Russ says it's never too cold.
Well, I don't know. Is it like fishing emergent vegetation? Will they blow up through the like dim ice?
Yeah, it depends on how thick the ice is.
I have heard people. I've seen a video. I think of a frog coming through thin ice before.
Yeah. I would say that spring up north when those fish pull up underneath the ice to spawn and they're ready to go and they're just waiting.
I do know I've went back and forth and broke up ice and came back a half an hour later and fished it and caught fish on it.
Right.
Yeah.
So. Good Lord, that last Toyota series that I fished. Remember, Gabe? We broke ice every single day. It would thaw out in the daytime, and then at night it was hard as a rock all the way from the 26 to PB2, breaking ice.
Yeah, that was nuts, man. I never seen.
Was that on the main lake too?
Oh yeah, 100%.
That's crazy. There wasn't just enough wave action in the evenings to keep that from happening.
No, yeah, it was cold. It was cold.
That was the strangest thing. It was like remember one of those mornings it didn't even really hit freezing, I guess.
But that water they took the sun off that water and that temperature dropped.
The water was so cold that it froze back from underneath kind of. It was strange.
I mean, it wasn't like 3 inches thick, which I've seen it there before, where in some coves that don't get a lot of sun or whatever, it would be thick. Like me and Greg coming out of his cove, you'd have to drive his Triton up on it till it would break and then drive it up on it again till it would break to get out of the cove. And then once you get out of the cove, it was clear. In that Toyota tournament, it was like the same thickness all the way to PB2.
Yeah.
See, and then you'd see a boat running and you go get behind him and running the stuff he'd already broken. But,
you guys talking like that, it's like us duck hunting. I mean, that's what we do duck hunting, but we're also in aluminum boats and we really don't care about the bottom of the boat. So.
Well, it's eerie going across frozen lake.
It sounds like all hell's breaking loose.
It is. Yeah. It's like end of the world kind of scary.
I can tell you, it's not any different going through it in a aluminum boat because it's
probably way louder.
Echoes.
It's probably louder even. Yeah, I lost my keel protector doing it, but I lost it backing out off the dock. You know what I'm saying? My boat was breaking. It caught, and I didn't even know it till I seen the picture in Bassmaster of me taking off that morning, and I was like, wait, where's my keel protector?
So
I happened to get a good shot as I was launching out or whatever. And
I thought you were unscathed on that one. I thought everything was good, but Trent's kind of with me. I agree with Trent on this. The most annoying thing about fishing in the winter is when you get the ice in your guides, which
other than that, I just don't want to be out there anymore.
Yeah, because it's real hard on your guides.
It's real hard on your hands too.
It's hard on your hands. It's hard on your line. It's just
patience. It's hard.
Pain in the butt, man. I just say, and you'll blow up your reel too, really easy. The first time that line kind of slows down and catches, and your spool's going really fast, it just blows up. And then you got to take it.
Never put your rods on your deck until you get to your fishing spot too in the cold weather. Otherwise, you'll have a frozen reel.
See, I've heard of all kinds of stuff to spray on your guides, but nothing's ever worked for me.
Real Magic works a little bit for a little while.
It does,
but you got to keep. You got to keep applying it.
Yeah, it helps for sure.
Let's see here.
The lazy boy is about where I'm going to be at when it's like that, though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind the cold, but you're right. That is a pain, Trent. When that's happening, it's like this is not even fun to be out here.
Yeah,
because you can't do what you want to do.
Right.
He fished a tournament at Coffeen once, and it was in the teens when we launched. The bite was good on jerk baits, but damn, my fingers got cold that day. Yeah, once you get cold, man,
Can't get back.
And it's that cold, like your bones are cold. It reminds me of that Pink Floyd song. Want to warm my bones by the fire.
By the fire, yeah.
It just, once it gets in there, you're screwed. That one of the coldest days I ever fished with, or that I ever fished a tournament in, was with Mike down at Lake of the Ozarks. And this was before I had my layering system. That is so key to have your, whatever it is, you got to have your layering system and you got to figure it out. And once you get it dialed in, then you're usually pretty good. But back then I didn't. Well, really, my feet was the problem. I was just wearing like New Balance tennis shoes with a pair of thick socks. And it was one of those days where it was 40 and it was super humid.
Stop that wind, man.
And
keep that moisture off there.
It was overcast all day long. And my feet got completely numb. And then, you know, when you got something cold like that, you can't focus on fishing. It just takes you kind of out of the game. But
so on my system, at least, I know you said you got to block the wind, and that's a big part of it. You got to keep the wind off of you, but you also, and I know Gabe does this, and I'm sure you do as well, Mike, but he wears Crocs and no socks to the ramp in the morning when it's blistering cold out, because you don't want your feet. You
want the feet sweating.
First thing my feet do is start to sweat. So
yeah, you don't want to start with them wet. The other key to me is spend the money on smart wool socks. As you're like, a lot of times I'll go with that really thin polypropylene layer first, and then smart wool to wick all that moisture away. And I can't use those heaters because it'll make my feet sweat. I got to just get the right amount of sock, and don't be afraid to spend money on smart wool socks.
So for me, being a waterfowl hunter, and I'm out in cold a lot.
Always in the cold, yeah.
The polypropylene socks were the death of me.
And they made your feet sweat?
I don't know why, but just a regular old cotton knee-high sock was the absolute best for me.
For your base layer underneath?
Yep.
Oh.
I know that's completely backwards to what everybody.
Yeah, but hey, man, if it works for you, that's awesome.
Exactly.
Because somebody out there that's trying to polypropylene right now, listening to this, would be like, well, maybe I should go back to the cotton. Maybe that's where I'm screwing up. Yep.
That was I had the same thought that you did. That wick all the moisture away, but it seemed like it held all the moisture on my foot and just froze it to death.
And admittedly, I think polypropylene is better for when you're moving versus just setting still.
Probably.
You know, and bass fishing, whether you realize it or not, you're moving. You're trying to stand up on a platform that's moving underneath you. So you're
unfortunately, our duck hunting isn't just sit and wait. It's more of
you walking, guys.
Go. I mean, typically in a day of hunting with us, we're walking 2+ miles with gear on our back. So it's more like
you're walking in. Yeah. That's, you guys are dedicated. That's a young man's game. That's yeah. Give me a guy driving me out in the side-by-side and putting me in a pit at this point. But
those are nice hunts, but
yeah, they're not as rewarding by any means.
Exactly. You don't feel like you worked at it.
I had my walk-in days at Carlisle back in the day, so when I was a younger man. And I tell you what, duck hunting back in the mid '80s was good on Carlisle. It really was. I don't know if it's any good anymore, but
I don't know.
I don't either. I've never been there. Brad said,
you never fished there either, Gabe?
A Warrior Williams tourney.
Yeah, Brad and me had a conversation. He recognized me. Dude, Brad, like I told you, that Toyota tournament, I got recognized like 10, 12 times at the meeting, a few more times at the weigh-in. There's a group of guys that said there were 6 of them in a cabin watching the latest video you just dropped. So that's awesome, that's really cool. I always tell the story when remember Gabe, we were at Table Rock. The guy was like, "Aren't you the guy from the 10 Horse Monty videos?" And he was like, "Yeah, I am." And he's like, "Well, how's he doing?" I was like, "You could ask him. He's backing me in right now. You could just ask him yourself." And his eyes lit up like he was meeting a superstar. So that was really cool.
Well, so my story on that is I don't know if I should be humbled or disappointed, but I was on the lake yesterday and a kayak drove by me and he goes, "Hey, are you 10 Horse?"
I'm the other guy.
I'm the other guy. I'm JB. Yeah. And he's like, "Well, nice to meet you, JB. Have a good day." We talked for a little bit. We're like, "Really?"
Yeah, well, I guess get used to it, man, right?
I know.
That's funny, man.
Yeah, that's awesome.
The mullet should never come back. Never come back.
So Gary, he's got
everything comes back though. The low-rise jeans back to the high-waisted jeans. You've been around, you hang around long enough, you see it all go in a circle.
A simple question here, but with all of that distinguished knowledge that you have in your beard, you ever make a hair jig out of that?
That's a good question. It's too puby. I don't think it would flow.
Yeah, that's true. You'd have to iron it before you went fishing.
Yeah. I'd have to do like Cat Williams and iron that stuff flat, and it just smell like weed in here as I'm ironing it. It'd be lovely.
I had Dave, my buddy Dave, he lived down he lived on Montauk. He owned a campground down there. He's moved out to Arizona, but years ago he used to cut like little pieces of his beard hair and make flies out of them.
Really?
Called it Dave's ear fly or something, Dave's hair fly or something.
I once worked with a weirdo that made a small hat and a vest out of his German Shepherd's sheddings.
What?
Yes.
That's kind of creepy,
This is a true story.
It's like borderline Jeffrey Dahmer stuff.
Yeah. Kept my distance for sure.
Petrie, Jeffrey Dahmer. Okay. It's wise move, man. It's
probably I love my dogs. You know, Gabe, I love my dogs, but I'm not wearing a vest made out of their hair.
Well, they don't have long enough hair to make a vest out of. They probably shed it.
They do shed a lot, but they shed like every other dog. The problem with theirs, JB, is it just sticks in everything because it's just short enough that you can't get it out.
I thought I saw you in Cape a couple weeks ago. I was telling Gabe this. It was at one of the gas stations that I call on, and there was a guy out there with 2 Dobermans and a big long beard, and I was like, "No way, that can't be." I got close to him, like, "Nope, that's definitely not Mike."
That's awesome. I came home to Debo having a funnel on his head. Elena didn't want Karen to tell me he had a little something on his foot that he wouldn't stop licking, so they put one of those cones on. And Dobermans are like Velcro dogs. They're always right up on you. So the whole time he's just walking around banging you with that cone, like smacking you. It's getting annoying. He walked up he just rams you with that cone. But hopefully in a few more days you can take the cone off because I think it's about to heal up. So
Todd wants to know. He says, Mike, tell us about the SG you have on the wall.
Oh, that is a 1999 Gibson SG Standard. And through the recommendation of Shannon Meyer, I've got a 57 humbucker in the bridge or in the neck and a 57 humbucker plus in the bridge.
Nice.
Other than that, it's bone stock. And what's funny is, Gabe, you know this. I was telling the guy today, I love Shannon Meyer's tone on guitar. And I was like, Shannon, what's your secret? And this was years ago. Like, what's the secret? Blah, blah, blah. Do I need to buy a Les Paul? Your rig, all that. He plugged my Stratocaster in to the amp I had, turned a couple knobs here and there, turned the volume up, turn the gain down a little bit. Sounded just like Shannon Meyer.
Yeah, it's right here.
That's all right here.
Yep.
That was the best lesson I ever got. I quit buying pedals. I quit buying all that stuff. I've got a wah pedal and, maybe a boost or a distortion, but that ain't what does it. You can chase your freaking tail from now to next week. And it's all in how you strike the strings and how you push on the string. Yeah. That's why when B.B. King strikes a note, or Eric Clapton or Albert King, Buddy Guy, you know who it is. And that's a game we played in my car with my boys when they were little in the car seats on up to where they were 12. And by the time they were 12, a chord could be struck and one of them would blurt out Stevie Ray Vaughan or B.B. King or, whoever. That's ZZ Top. Because I'd always ask them, who's this? And eventually they got to where, oh, yeah, when AC/DC strikes a chord, you know exactly who it is.
Yeah, I was out at my father-in-law's house. This has been probably like 4 or 5, maybe 6 years ago. And he lives about 2 miles as a crow flies from the Bayou Bar and Grill out in Pocahontas.
Right. And we met you there to see with.
Yeah. And so we were sitting on the back porch there, just chilling one evening. And I hear a band start up. And within probably 10 seconds of the guitar solo, I'm like, that sounds just like Shannon Meyer. That's got to be Shannon. I could hear his tone. Sure enough, they were playing there, but I could hear him without seeing him, without knowing they were even playing. Oh yeah,
100%. And that's Shannon. That's Shannon playing a cover. It's Shannon playing a cover of somebody else's song, and you recognize who it is.
Yep,
that's the thing. You can mistake this with like, oh, Mike really knows every BB King song. No, it could be Stevie Ray Vaughan playing an Eric Clapton song, and I'm like, oh, that's got to be Clapton on guitar. The first time I heard the Edie Brickell song in the '80s on the radio, and Garcia came in on guitar. This is before the internet where you could go search that. I was like, holy cow, that's Jerry Garcia on the guitar. it's before you ever know any of this stuff happened. And then I had to listen to the song, which, it's okay, whatever, but it's a pop song. And when it got to the end, the DJ said, that was Edie Brickell's new hit with Jerry Garcia on the guitar. I was like, yes, I was vindicated. I was like, yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Warren Haynes. Warren Haynes.
Same thing. Derek Trucks.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them out there. Even a lot of the bass players, I can tell.
Jeff Beck.
Yeah, you can just tell. I
mean, even the new guys, like what's the one guy? The new guy, something 5, Johnny 5 or Johnny. You know what I'm talking about?
No. What
John 5, I think that's his name, right? He's like a modern day wizard. He just did on Ray Wiley Hubbard's album. He did it's called Co-Starring 2. It's his second one where he does songs with other people.
Okay.
Which you'll love this, Gabe. I was on the fence about the Cadillac 3. I'm like, man, these guys are kind of groovy, but it's kind of Nashville country, blah, blah, blah. And then they did a song with Ray Wiley Hubbard. And I was like, oh, well, there I go. I got my approval. I can officially come out of the closet. I like the Cadillac 3. Johnny, I think it's called John 5. I think. I'm going to look it up.
Must have been near Wapapella.
Oh, no. Yeah, that was when I was with Doug. That sandwich was no joke, man. That sucker was huge. Had about a 1 pound ham sandwich for like less than $4 at some little roadside gas station place way out in the middle of nowhere when I went fishing.
Nice.
Yeah, it was proper. It cost you $20 at Subway, I'm thinking. Yeah.
That's awesome.
For the 6, I'm sure.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was good stuff. Darius, I saw your question or your comment. Darius is checking in from Kentucky Lake. I think night fishing's about over, bro. I know you've been enjoying that.
It's been over for me since I turned 45 because I can't see where the shit at night. So
yeah, it's tough out there. Man, I had my shorts on today at work and about 5:30. Woo!
It lit you up, didn't it?
Yeah, it was cold, man. That wind kind of blew out of the north all day long. It was nippy for sure.
Okay, Gabe, it is John 5, and he was the guitarist for David Lee Roth, then Marilyn Manson, then Rob Zombie, and now he does his own deal.
Oh, wow.
So check him out. He does all that modern stuff on a Telecaster that he's got all hopped up. So, which is different, right? You take a 57, 55 Telecaster.
Yeah.
Except for the water temperature still like 30 degrees.
Yeah.
Dang,
when
Gary.
I worked as a canoe guide up in Canada, the water was still frozen into May. It was just ice was just coming off in May.
Gary said it snowed both Thursday and Friday at lacrosse last weekend for the regional 75 practice court. Gary, congratulations, man! You had a heck of a tournament. You and your brother.
No doubt.
That's awesome. I was really pulling for you.
Was that the regional?
Yeah. Your tournament
at Pickwick. They were there. Gary and his brother were both at Pickwick.
Gary and Brian. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
No. They were lacrosse.
Oh, lacrosse. I thought you were down at Pickwick with you. No.
No.
They're up north.
Yeah, I think they qualified through the Illini region,
okay,
Illini division, which I wish I would have went up there instead because Pickwick was
lacrosse
ridiculously
like
tough.
10-hour drive though.
But you'd have hated to fish the Illini division to get there. Good Lord.
Yeah, that would have been tough, man. That would have been tough.
Kicking yourself in the nuts.
I tell you what, if I was to fish the Illini division, it would be out of my own boat though. Like I would go as a boater on that side.
Yeah.
Because
they do like Shelbyville, Carlisle, Wren, and the Ohio River twice. Isn't that generally what they do?
They don't do Carlisle. Like it's
is it Shelbyville twice?
Yeah, I think
they don't do the Ohio River twice, do they?
I'm not sure, man.
Unless they do like
who am I thinking that does the Ohio River? I thought somebody did the Ohio River.
They do the Ohio
River.
It's
out of Galconda,
but it's usually out of Galconda because that's where you and I try to fish one. I think you cut a check and I blanked.
I'm not talking crap on anybody that does it. It's just like I'm kind of in the middle where it's a pretty good drive to either one. I'm going to the Ozarks. If you're close, I get it. You know what I'm saying? We love to fish.
For us, I think LBL's the closest.
Ooh, check this out. David says you can put antiperspirant on your feet.
I've heard that before. Yeah.
Keep you from sweating.
Thanks, David.
Wow. I might try. You smell good. I mean, I might actually try that.
Yeah, it's definitely. I've heard other people say the same thing because
I was just thinking, being an ex-deer hunter, you can get like the non-scented or the earth scent, something that doesn't smell like
hippie stuff. Yeah, get some of that hippie stuff.
Patchouli.
That's right.
Yeah.
You calling me a hippie?
Maybe you can even get an antiperspirant that smells like doe urine or something. That'd be awesome.
Ooh, no, you don't want to do that on your feet. I mean, they're bad enough as it is.
Yeah. It's all fun and games to get chased
have
out
a
of the
bump
woods.
hump, having a buck hump your feet. Yeah, you're having to run back to the truck.
Walking through the parking lot, and all of a sudden there's something following you creepily.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I used to threaten the kids on my baseball team with my Dobermans. I said, I'm going to staple bologna to your ankles and cut these boys loose, see who's faster than who if you keep up. You know.
Are your Dobermans mean?
No, they're big babies. Now, you grab a hold of my daughter, they'll probably shred your neck. But, you know, if you're a dog person and you're here on good intentions, you're good.
They just look mean. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they look very mean.
They got a good bark, too.
Yes. They're super intelligent. If you didn't know that, they're like number 3 on the list behind the poodle. Yeah, yeah. They're very trainable, very easy, very loyal. That's why I say my daughter and my wife are the one that feeds them, and I let that happen. Somebody's like, "Why don't you?" I do that on purpose. Let them be the ones that feed them because that's why I can take care of myself. Those dogs are here for when I'm traveling, fishing, and stuff.
Well, and they know who you don't bite the hand that feeds you, right? Like
that's right. That's right.
They know that.
And they know that, and they know that I also protect the hand that feeds me. So,
right.
Yeah. We had a big biker looking dude came to the wrong house one night, and Kara opened the door, and both of those Dobermans are standing behind her. And that dude took about 4 steps back and about tripped over the landscaping light. And they were behind glass. So it's effective for sure.
Being a mailman, I totally have empathy with that guy.
Dobermans
just opening the door and seeing 2 big dogs. You're like, oh,
yeah. But the funny thing is that once you have a relationship with them, when Gabe shows up for us to go fishing early in the morning, I look out and make sure nobody else is around. I let them out and they go circle around Gabe, wagging their tail, all excited. Gabe's here. Yeah. You know, so
you just got to keep your
whether you're supposed to be there or not.
He likes to nudge.
They like to jump.
Oh yeah, they like to nudge you.
My dogs love everybody. I have a guy that I work with that loves dogs, you know, and it's funny that you know, they just, once they know you, it's all good. I think that's the intelligence thing, you know. I got a buddy of mine, I go over to his house, his little dog just barks at me every freaking time, and then he sits in my lap and lets me pet him. It's like, what are we doing here, dude?
That was Miss Finley on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
Growled at me. I pulled up next to Gabe and
a little 14-pound dog. Yeah, that was funny. And then she still
she still was. Yeah. But like you said, she'll come down here when nobody's upstairs and she'll sit right here next to me and I'll just pet her the whole time.
Yeah. She's real protective out on the water. She doesn't like anything to get in the boat. She is anytime there's a log or a stump or something, she's like on point, growling at the stump.
Oh yeah.
Turtle, anything that moves.
Yeah, my last Doberman or 2 ago, Bert, I couldn't take him in my boat because I went to Kincaid with all that flooded timber, man. He wanted to crush every freaking piece of pole timber we came on.
Yeah, it's crazy.
He was like, Dad, back here. Woo, woo.
Yeah.
Woo.
12 o'clock.
And I was like, all right, this is never going to happen again.
Yeah. What's up, Jay? Good to see you on here, man. Check this out. I didn't know if you heard this, but on Bass Talk Live, Menendez was on there with Panger. They were down at the Strike King Lose writers conference thing, and they were talking about
Table Rock.
You know, I don't know where it was at. I'm not really sure.
No, that was up. I was just listening to the first half of it. I haven't finished it all. They were up north, Michigan.
Okay,
that's right. They were talking about smallmouth.
Mutton Lake, I think, is where they were. Right.
They were talking about the Michigan smallmouth.
Okay.
But anyway, they were talking. Menendez was talking about. Actually, they got on the question about favorite colored jerk baits or something, and Menendez started talking about Mike Russell and the Mike Russell paints for Strike King. And Mike's been on the live stream a couple times, but it was really cool to hear him get a shout out because he's involved in that company, you know, with the paint schemes and stuff like that. So it's cool to hear the behind. It's like, you know, the guy that does a lot of work.
The fact that he's made his way to Strike King, which is
yeah.
You can say what you want about the big conglomerates, but I mean, people say that about music, right? You're selling out. Isn't that what we're all here? I mean, you want to make money. I mean, you want to make it to the top. I mean, they're not.
Yeah, I didn't want to whittle my own guitar out of a piece of oak, and I'm talking out of my butt here, but I mean, that's not, you want to be able to say, yeah, that Gibson's was given to me by Gibson, not
right.
Oh, now you're a sellout because you got the best of the best.
Because your signature series with the big corporation with Gibson. Yeah, well, that's what you're kind of inspiring to.
Right.
You're a sellout because now you're selling albums. Like,
yeah, when you're opening up for Billy Strings or you're opening up for whoever,
right?
That means you may be playing with a commercial band, not Billy Strings, but let's say, well, just pick a band. But that just means that you've made it. You're where you need to be, or you're at a certain.
That band that picked you was picked by somebody else earlier.
Right.
Yep.
Nick says that Jig Bite's going to be on this weekend at Lake of the Ozarks. Man, it seems like it's on almost all the time down there.
It's been on down there for.
Does it ever go away?
Mike said no.
Well, anytime I don't do well, that means it went away because I was trying
it. That's true, man. Well said. That's awesome. Oh, check us out. DJ says he'd like to have a Gibson grabber or ripper. DJ's a fellow bass player.
I have a bass playing friend of mine that just got his new Geddy Lee Fender Signature Series finally showed up. So that's pretty cool, right?
That is.
I'm not a big Rush fan. It's too complicated for me. Although I know their prowess is awesome. Just too much going on for me. I like my 3-piece bands to be more simple, Gabe, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
But yeah, he got it. I seen on Facebook today, he got his new Geddy Lee Custom Signature Series. He'd ordered like 9 months ago or something. They finally got him in. So,
dude,
Fender Precision jazz bass.
There's a difference between listening to guitar players and hearing guitar players.
Absolutely, Daniel T.
Yep.
White man can't.
I say that all the time about music. About the 4th time I hear a song, I realize it's got lyrics. That means you're listening to the music. And then
Stevie Ray, man.
The lyrics come later. He is
that
the king.
Live at El Macumbo.
That's the greatest freaking thing. Sweating straight cocaine and whiskey and just getting down.
Getting it, man.
That's my favorite quote from Stevie Ray Vaughan. They said, "How do you get that tone?" He says, "Heavy strings, tune down half a step and floor it." Floor, it's a technical term. Turn that up. That's what Eddie Van Halen said too. That's why his guitars don't have tone knobs, right? They said, "Why don't your guitars have tone knobs?" He says, "Volume is tone, son. Turn it up."
Yeah, turn it up to 11. Like, what is that? Spinal Tap.
Spinal Tap. Yeah. One of the greatest movies in history. That's not a movie. That's a film.
11 ounces, man. 11 ounces.
That's how they lost by 11 ounces.
I think from making the day 3 or
day 3.
Maybe the All-American, I think.
Oh,
I can't remember.
Devastating.
Here we go. Gary says 2 at Shelbyville, 2 at Wren, 1 at Ohio this year.
Well, that's better than Carlisle anywhere in that mix.
I heard Shelby is like hit or miss though, really bad.
Coming from the guy that lived on Carlisle and used to fish it all the time, it used to be decent, but now it's silted into where it's like a saucer.
Bluegrass Bassin says, "What were
you don't want to know what Gabe's best baits were in his
last... you used in the last tournament?"
No, I had to give that one. It was a low blow. I'm sorry.
No, you're right.
So what did you use at Pickwick, Gabe? Punching any? Do you guys do any punching?
No, we didn't. I threw a frog a little bit. Really underspin.
Well, I guess if you ran the Yellow Creek, there's no punching up that direction, right?
No, that grass was kind of like mid-second. But I tell you what, one thing that I thought I was going to see, and well, let me rephrase that. One thing that surprised me was I was expecting that there was a lack of grass, that we wouldn't see grass anywhere. And there's plenty of grass on Pickwick still. From several people we've had on the live streams, and I've just talked to or chatted with or texted with or whatever, they said that the grass is gone at Pickwick, and that's not the case. We saw plenty of grass. Now, it wasn't as much grass as when me and you were down there, Mike.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't like those big, solid, thick mats that you had to take a 2-ounce weight to punch through, but there was plenty of grass. A lot of it hadn't quite topped out, but if you side scanned an area, you'd see some of that grass out there all the way out to like 8 or 10 feet, and there was definitely some mats. So there's plenty of grass there. We didn't see any eelgrass. We saw hydrilla.
How was the lake level? Was it low?
It seemed to be down just a hair, but that was only my 3rd time being on the lake. So I'm not.
If you had to make an educated guess, Gabe, what was the percentage of less grass than when me and you were there a couple years back?
I'd say there's 60% less grass.
Wow, that's a lot.
There was a lot. So that one area that we fished, if we were heading towards the dam, towards, I guess it's basically we were going away from McFarland towards
Yellow
Creek.
Up that direction, towards the other dam.
About midway by Kroger Island.
With the current, going with the current.
Right. No, would it be going? Yeah, going with current.
Yeah, it's going with the current.
Down by Kroger Island in that area. Do you remember that one little cut that we fished that had the 3 little rock islands out in the front of it? It had a little pole on, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And how there was that bar that ran that had grass mats like solid all the way along the river.
Yeah.
That there's no grass on that now. I mean, there's a little bit, it's just not topped out. So those real long strips of grass that we were seeing, you don't really see that now. But in those same areas, there's still some little, like smaller strips of grass.
So right there, was it just not topped out?
Well, I don't know because we didn't scan for it. Okay. It might have been still underneath.
So does my thought is, what do you guys think? If there's a little bit less, is it easier to pinpoint where they might be in it, or do they just give up on it and scatter out of it, call it a day?
I think it would definitely be easier to figure out which grass they were using and which grass.
Because there's not a guy that doesn't fish a lot of grass, only Kincaid. And when we went to Pickwick and, other times I've traveled to go fishing, it's overwhelming. I mean, I love doing it. My ADD will allow me to throw a big heavy weight and, punch through there. And I'm all excited that I'm going to smoke a big one. But the trying to pinpoint it and figure it out, I'm not a grass expert. I don't know. I know you're looking for the little breaks underneath in the ditches and all that stuff, but it's overwhelming when we were there at Pickwick, Gabe, with all that grass. It was just like, and there's 50, 60 boats in a eye shot all the time. It's like, I feel like that's a lot of pinging and weights crashing through.
It was when we were down there, there were miles and miles of grass, like, solid stretches of grass. It was unbelievable. Just crazy,
Well, you've been to Chick, right?
Yeah, it's like Chick, same type of deal.
So we fish grass pretty much every weekend from now until next year.
Guys. You fish it in the winter too. They like that grass in the winter, don't they?
Warmer.
Yeah.
Holds that heat a little bit.
Right.
I think that
kind of like in the Ozarks, the lava rock, what I call it, lava rock.
Right.
Stuff.
But
something that's facing the right direction, getting that sun on it, they love it.
Even going to like a TVA that is covered in grass, like a Pickwick or a Guntersville or a Chickamauga, that's overwhelming to me. Like, where do you start? For one, there's current that's involved, right? It's not just an impoundment. It's
right.
Or it's not just a reservoir. It's
got a dam on both ends.
Yeah, and it's got moving water through it. So where they move, that's all confusing to me. I haven't fished it enough to know.
Right.
But I'm like you, it's grass, and that's where I'm going to fish at when I go to a lake like that. I'm not going to pass on grass. I promise you that.
It is fun to fish. Anything to me that's a little bit different than what I'm used to, I like to go do it. I don't get a chance to.
Recently, even at our home lake Cedar, I mean, I have not patterned fish at all this year. I'll catch a big one here and there, and it's like, okay, he was here. Go replicate that in 5 or 10 areas and nothing. It's like, okay, just put the trolling motor down and fish for 2 miles. And then all of a sudden, boom, 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 you catch 3 in a row. You go back the next day, try to replicate that again. It's like, nope.
Well, here's the deal on that. There has to, and this is what I think, in my opinion, I think there has to be a higher percentage of fish in those locations to get a pattern. Like right now, it's still, let's just say 20% of the fish are in the grass right now. And here in about another couple weeks, maybe 40% are going to be in the grass.
Well, what we're having tonight's going to help.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So when there's only 20% of the fish in the grass, it's a lot harder to pattern the fish because they're pretty random. But when you get 40 or 50, they start becoming more congregated in certain areas. And then you're like, okay, they're using these secondary points, or they're using these little bitty short pockets or something. But I think while still a majority of the fish are out in different places, it's harder to pattern. Just an opinion.
I think you're 100% correct. Because I mean,
typically
mid-October, we should already have a huge influx of fish in the grass. Now, it doesn't help that we're 4 foot low. So I think
and everywhere's low right now, isn't it? Like everywhere around the country, it seems.
But you were saying, and you brought this to my attention again, how we're 3 weeks behind still, basically.
Yeah, we were 3 weeks behind in the spring.
Right.
We were 3 weeks behind in, post spawn. we were 3 weeks behind this summer, and then now all of a sudden and this is me, I'm saying we, but we're expecting that it's October, it's grass fishing, we got to go. Well, we're still 3 weeks behind.
No, that's why like keeping a log and going by strictly the date, that ain't the deal. It's like what proceeded up to that date,
right?
Temperature wise and all that stuff. It's
and
length of days is always my big thing.
Yeah,
when the days get short, length of days make a huge difference.
Yeah, water temperature really doesn't mean much to me. This year or this time of the year, water temperature plays more than in the spring for me, honestly. Because Gabe knows I'll be the first one flipping in the spring. Like when y'all are out still throwing jerk baits and trying to catch them, on points and on the edges of stuff, I'll be up there in 2 foot of water flipping when it's barely even 50 degrees.
Especially if you're a tournament fisherman, because if everybody else is doing that, I'm going to go catch the ones that nobody's pressuring and trying to catch.
Well, and what fish moves up first?
The biggins.
The biggins.
Yeah.
So when you flip in that muddy soup and it turns to more muddy soup, you just slackline them.
Well, and it's warming up quick too. That shallow or dirty water is going to be warming up quick, and they're ready. When it's
especially if that shallow, dirty water is not too far from some deep water.
Right.
Exactly. In a spawning area,
and they can slide up, slide back down.
Yep, that's really a timing deal. Jake says in his office, he's a letter carrier as well. He says we put $20 in a pot, and the last one to hold out with shorts gets the pot.
Nice. Ooh. I like that.
We had a little bet going. I think it ended last winter, but there was like 2 or 3 guys that wore shorts 2 years in a row. Like they survived both winters.
And
it's like 2 or 3 guys. No pants, shorts all winter long.
My son Miles would win that pot every freaking time.
Yeah.
That kid wears shorts year round.
So, I can't do it. I can do it chill about.
I got shorts on right now. And it's it's the first cold day. But also got a hoodie on too.
Yeah.
Gabe, you missed out this year. They gave out the Reaper hoodies. They switched from Carhartt to AFCO.
I know. I like that.
I can see that. I got mine on. I've never participated, but I got mine on.
Is that a Reaper too?
No, it's the Carhartt.
That's a Carhartt.
Okay.
Those are really nice too.
It's one of my favorite hoodies, I'll be honest with you.
That's a wash. I like both of them. Does yours have the little cell phone pocket in it, JB?
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's sweet, right? I'm a pocket guy. Give me more pockets. Like I want more pockets than Michael Jackson.
The Reaper for me, it's too I don't like that, what is that material? Like that quick wick dry material. Yeah. I like cotton.
Yeah. I like them both. They both have their places. It's got the breathers under the arms, which helps too for sweaters and hot guys that run hot like me.
Fat guys and sweaty guys.
Brad caught him up some fish, man. 4 fish for almost 16 or 15
at Wren.
Quarter at Wren. That's
a pretty solid bag.
Solid, man.
Well, 1/6/22, that helps for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that gets you up there quick.
I'm hoping to do that next year around this time when we fish our regional. So.
Oh, wait, here we go. So it's got to be a certain kind here. The antiperspirant on the feet trick, I feel like it has to be the white stick. The clear or the gel doesn't work as good.
I can see that because it goes on dry and stays dry.
Yeah.
You're like a commercial, JB. It goes on
tough enough for a man, but yet discreet enough.
Strong enough for a woman or whatever. Strong enough for a man, good enough for a wife. How did that go?
I said it was strong enough for a man, but discreet enough for a fisherman.
Yeah, I used to live right next door to a big Rottweiler, big, like 140-pound Rottweiler.
Ooh.
But she was sweet as could be.
Just a pushover.
But her bark was like, woo, woo. You're like, oh my God, I'm not getting near that dog. But you walk up on her. She was a sweetheart.
My Dobie Burt Stan Denninger wanted to record his bark at the studio and then use that on a motion sensor around the property. So you sensed it, the damn bark went off inside the house.
I've had a lot of dogs in my life, but it doesn't matter what it is. If there's a door closed and you can't see what's in the other side, it doesn't matter if it's Finley, the little 14-pound dog upstairs, my 100-pound lab, your Dobermans. It doesn't matter. If there's a door closed and there's a dog barking on the other side, it makes you think twice.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's just and you know it's alerting everybody. That's the thing.
Yeah, my dog, whenever she hears the garage door open,
yep,
she cuts loose something. She just and the little, we have the Life 360 app on. Well, I don't have it on my phone anymore. I turn it off because I'm like, I go private a lot, and then so I'm not consistent. But anyway, my wife and my 2 daughters have it, and every time my dog hears that little ding that it makes, she goes absolutely nuts, crazy. Even if everybody's in the house, you know, sometimes it's like a delay.
Yeah,
you know, it'll like ding like 5 minutes after somebody got home, and she still like runs to the door because she thinks it's kind of like that Pavlov dog deal. You know,
she knows.
Oh, yeah, it's 100% what it is.
Yeah, she knows somebody's coming. Yeah, Jim says Mullet Lake in Michigan. Talking about it.
Maybe we'll have to change it from the Alabama waterfall to the Michigan waterfall.
I like it. Let's see. Jesse says, anyone remember Dale Sailors who used to paint for the pros? No.
I do not. I'm old and I don't remember that, but
yeah, but how many of those painters that are out there that we have no clue?
Most of them.
I mean, you look at oh my gosh, I just lost his name. Menendez was talking about him.
Who, Mike?
Yeah, Mike Russell.
Mike Russell, yeah.
I mean, how many guys throughout the country know who Mike Russell is?
If you're in the Midwest and you don't know him, you're not that serious. But other than that,
Mag 5 Baits is his
right. But I mean, you go outside of the fishermen in the Midwest. I mean, there's probably another 50 painters that are good, and probably another 10 that paint for companies, because he's not the only one that does it. I know Frank Scalish does it out of Ohio.
Yeah.
So, but there's a bunch of different companies and they all have paint schemes. So somebody's got to come up with those.
I don't know, Jay. If I'm in the fishing business and KVD calls, I'm picking up the phone.
I'm pretty much, yeah. If I can,
kidney or not, I'm picking up the phone.
Yeah. Say a prayer for Mike out there. He's doing better.
Yeah, 100%. He's a great guy. I used to work Belleville Sports at the Collinsville Let's Go Fishing show, and Mike was always there. Sweet dude, man. Really good guy.
Yeah, he's a good dude, man. Good dude.
I never cheated on my buddy Trey and bought Mike's stuff because I'm pretty loyal to Trey at TH Customs, but I know I can, much like Rush, I can appreciate good work when I see it, whether or not.
You're talking about Marfell?
Yeah. Trey's he's a good dude, man.
Yeah, Trey's a good painter too, and a good.
Yes, he is. Yes, he
great
is.
Cleaning reels. Oh,
every one of my reels, brand new, goes straight to him, and he puts them ceramic Boca Barons in them. And, I haven't taken my skipping reels to him yet. I got 2 of those new Lew's and A. Montgomery skipping reels. The best thing ever happened for me, and I haven't taken the tray to put the Boca in them. They're even going to get better when I do that, I'm sure.
Yeah. Here's a good question for all 3 of us. Stephanie says, how much do you think fishing out of the back of the boat affects how you do in the BFL tournaments?
I'm not fishing the BFLs next year, Stephanie, if that tells you anything.
Yeah. Well, here's my take on that. It really helps to draw a boater that is around fish, at least has an idea of what's going on, because that puts you in the right areas and gives you a chance. But even when you get that draw, you still have to make the right bait choices, and you still got to be able to put your bait where it needs to be, especially if you're fishing a place like Lake of the Ozarks that has docks and a lot of or even Wren. If you got a lot of targets, a lot of visible targets, you still got to be able to put your baits around those targets, and you still got to be thinking about what's going on, because you know he can be up there just catching them, and you're still not going to be catching them if you're not, you know, if your head's not in the game. But
or if you're trying to fish for his same fish,
trying to fish for his same
don't
fish.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Even
in our team tournaments, I tell Greg, don't try to do what, you know, I'm going to be putting the boat in position for me. Do something a little different. Don't try to do what I'm doing. That's why me and Gabe are so good, because Gabe he'll drag a football jig or a shaky head or throw a swim bait behind me when I'm skipping that jig in places and catching the fish I'm not fishing for.
Well, see, I agree with you about 90% on that until you're dialed. And when you're dialed and that's the way you're catching them, not necessarily a dock lake, but target fishing, grass fishing. It is
Carolina, dragging a Carolina rig on a point. Yeah, that's different.
Yeah,
100%.
once you get dialed and that's the bite that you're going for, yeah, maybe throw something a little off color or a different dragger, but you're still going to be throwing a dragon bait out there doing the exact same deal.
Probably something I really learned, that something I was reminded of at Pickwick on day 2 was targeting the water column that the fish are using is so critical. Are they feeding all the way up to the surface? Will they take a top water? Are they suspended, or are they on the bottom? Those 3 areas of the water column can make or break your day. My boater
feeding up or down.
I caught the first fish in the morning on a jerk bait. He was throwing a top water, and he's out in front of the boat. He's covering the stuff. So one thing that I've learned, I learned this a couple years ago on a Kentucky Lake tournament, is if your boat is still on a topwater, throw a jerk bait, because
he's just getting them fired. He's getting the ones fired up that won't come all the way up to eat the jerk bait that's 4 feet in the deep.
Right, and you're still only going down about 4 feet, so you're not too far down. Those same fish will usually hit a jerk bait. A lot of times you're right in their face. But as the day went on, the topwater bite wasn't really the deal. I caught a couple on the jerk bait, but we got to where I drug a lot of stuff on the bottom. He was throwing a crankbait and he kept alternating that top water, and it wasn't working. So I'm thinking, well, the bottom, that water column is not getting touched. So I fished the bottom with a shaky head, a jig, and a tube. I gave them all a fair shake, and I could not get a bite on the bottom. Started fishing an underspin and started catching some fish. He started fishing an underspin and started catching some fish, and I caught another one on a jerk bait. So that told me and him, of course, that those fish were suspended and they were feeding up slightly. They would not go down. They wanted to feed up. And I kept alternating. I'd still just try to keep him honest by dragging something while he's throwing that underspin, because he's covering a pretty good area with that underspin. And I threw an underspin too. I had a little bit different. I was going like more finesse, a little bit smaller one. But I kept mixing that jig and that tube and that shaky head, stuff that I've caught fish on in these tournaments when it's tough, especially that shaky head. That shaky head's been golden for me. It got me to the regionals. I leaned on that thing heavily, and I could not get a bite on that. So it was so obvious that those fish were not feeding on the bottom. And that's something that even if you're in a situation where you get a boater that's a good draw, or if you get a boater that's not around fish, or maybe not on the right pattern, but still in areas that have fish, knowing where the fish are located in the water column can still get you a fish or put more fish in the boat. That's super key to pay attention to that. If you're throwing something on the bottom and you're not, even if it's your confidence thing, and you've gave it like 30, 45 minutes, maybe even an hour, an honest effort in multiple locations, and it's not working, you need to try something else. You need to try swimming something. You need to try a swim jig, a chatterbait, a spinnerbait, underspin, a fluke. And then if that's not going, maybe a top water. And it could just be the fish are not biting. A lot of times it is the fish are not biting, but don't get stuck and stubborn on one thing. And I think that's something that no matter who you draw out of the back of the bow, that's something that you can be working on. And usually I'll do the opposite of what the boater's doing until we figure it out. Like Jonathan was saying, if it becomes obvious that what the pattern is, then you got to switch. You got to switch because that's where the fish are at. Maybe a different color, maybe just a little bit different action or something. If you're throwing a swim bait and your boater's throwing a underspin, it's something about that little spinner, maybe something about that little flash. You may want to throw a small spinner bait or a swim jig with a little flash on the bottom of it. But that's one of the things that you can really pay attention to out of the back of the boat is what the heck's out there.
Or if your boater's catching them on a wiggle work, well, a football jig kind of worked quickly across the bottom, ain't a whole hell of a lot different, but it's enough different that it might get you a bite that he didn't get. It's on the bottom. It's trying to do the same thing. Maybe that's why I love a jig. I mean, I catch as many fish on my jig swimming it as I do on the bottom. Me and Gabe talked about that, I think, at Lake of the Ozarks, not matching the hatch. Like when you see people will see fish schooling and they throw a topwater out of a walking bait, a whopper plopper, a buzz bait. No, throw a jig up there, let it sink 6 inches and just burn it through there. It looks different than those. There's a good chance I've caught a lot of fish swimming a jig underneath underneath those schooling fish. So yeah, don't be afraid to try something different. I mean, matching the hatches makes perfect sense, but it's really hard to compete with a lot of natural shad with your jerk bait or whatever it may be.
One of the best baits to throw, like we're a little bit, well, actually we're getting into that. I was going to say that in the summertime when they get out there and they start schooling and they're chasing those shad, one of the best things to throw is a black and blue swim jig. Totally, it doesn't look like a shad at all, but just the same concept. Yep. It looks different than those shad, or something that has a little bit different action than
you got to think there's 3.5 million shad out there that all look the same, that are all the same size, they're all doing the same thing, and they move together. And all of a sudden one just falls out and it's black. It's like, oh, I can eat that one. That one's easy.
It's black and it's bigger. Why don't I just eat this one bluegill versus 3 shad or 4
Besides
shad?
The fact that it's got a nickel barbed point on it, that's their only concern.
We're just going for a boat ride, JB. It's no big deal.
Fair enough. Unless it's a crappie, and then it's going for a skillet.
Frying pan, yeah.
Blue Guys Basket says, do you have to have a boat to compete in the co-op tournament? Yeah, it depends. You can. I fish as a co-angler. Mike fishes as a boater. So a boater obviously has to have a boat. But if you fish on the coast side, you draw somebody that has a boat, and you just link up that way.
Yeah, it's not a like a boater on boater draw or. But if you're wanting to get into it, obviously reach out to Gabe, myself. We've both done the co-angler thing, and it is very, very.
And there's plenty of websites out there too, right, JB, where you can find a hunt down a link for yourself, a boater that's looking for a link.
The Book of Faces has got thousands of sites.
The face bizzle, right. Yeah.
Yeah, you just sacrifice choosing where to fish unless you've got a good captain.
Well, the way I look at it, and you guys can attest this, there's fish everywhere. It's just whether they're willing to bite or whether you can catch them. Paying attention to your surroundings. If my big thing was if the guy left the graph on at the back of the boat, I treated that like a gold mine. Like I'm watching that thing like a hawk, even if it's just sonar. Traditional sonar, that's what I loved. Put it on that and a map. That's all I care about.
I tried. Well, I won't give you my map. It's got a lot of waypoints on it. But I always ask my co-angler, JB, what do you want? You want down scan, side scan, both? You want traditional 2D? What do you want? I'll put it on for you. I'm not going to,
Well, honestly,
I run 5 AGM batteries. I ain't worried about my electronics being on. If you want something on that makes you more comfortable as my co-angler, let's just do that. Let's have a fun day.
For me, it's the map wasn't necessarily for the. I could care less about your waypoints. I want to know what the contour is coming up.
Sure.
What the contour is behind me. Do we have a point? What's my next cast going to look like? That's the same thing I do on my graph.
100%, man.
Waypoint. So
100%. I get that. I just like to let them know that I'm casting at that brush pile first, and then you can have it after that. But
marking your territory.
Well, I told my last co-angler at the BFL Super, like, I'm very right-handed, so the way I'm going to work these docks is in a certain pattern, and a lot of times I just don't want you casting over there because I'm getting to it. I'm just not getting to it till the boat's in the right position.
Right.
So you fish off the same side of the boat that I'm fishing behind me.
Yep.
And our day will be awesome.
And that's a courtesy thing, right? Like, just because I turn the boat one way doesn't mean to cast to the other side of the. It doesn't have to be a dock. You could be running down a narrow cut or a cove.
Right.
And we get to the back of it. And the worst thing to see is to look at the guy in the back of the boat and he's casting the other side. It's like,
I mean, you can do it, but
you can do it. There's no rule that says you can't do that. But I can tell you your day's going to be a lot better if you let me fish that first.
You keep doing that with me at Lake of the Ozarks, you're going to get ass-ended.
Yeah,
basically. I'm going to make sure that your day sucks. Because I'm the guy that has a conversation in the morning. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And I want you to catch fish, and I'm going to point out the brush piles. I'll even say, like, he didn't bite my jig. Maybe he'll bite your shaky head in that brush pile that's right there. But I don't want you casting at stuff that I plan on fishing. I had, like you're saying, JB, it could be a lay down in a narrow cut that you can reach with a long cast. But sometimes
I can reach it with a pitch, but I'm not going to.
Right. I'm not going to either. And I do that because I was a co-angler too for years. I fished the Elite Series and the Opens as a co-angler for years. It's like I was there to learn, and I'm going to be respectful, and I would expect people in the back of my boat to be respectful, even at a lower level than those guys.
Well, even at the lower level, like when I went to fish Kentucky Lake for 4 or 5 years that we did it together, it wasn't to go and cash checks and get trophies and make regionals. That was all a bonus. I wanted to learn a new way to fishing.
Yep.
What is it like to throw an 8-inch swim bait on a ledge with, 3 mile an hour current ripping and 4 to 8 pound largemouth coming up eating it?
And how to run the lake. That's one thing that's really valuable about fishing out the back of the boat is how do people run the lake? What's safe? Are there some areas you got to really pay attention to?
Yeah, everything about it. How guys handle their business. How a guy's totally prepared and ready to go and efficient. I mean,
there's lots of things that you can learn as a co-angler. You just got to watch. And what did you guys say? Listen, not hear, not listen.
Yeah, that's why the Marshall program, I did that after fishing the Elite Series as a co-angler. I learned 10 times more as a marshal than I ever did as a co-angler.
How is that? I've been debating that if they get close.
You should do it. You should do it. I did 4 of them in a row in the first year that they had it. And I had fished every tournament as a co-angler the year before. Learned so much more. They would invite you up to show you what they were looking at. They're more free with the information because you're not trying to catch fish out of what they're trying to make a living on for the next 4 days.
Well, and you're 100% focused on them at that point. You're not worried about catching a fish.
You're not worried about getting your $750 entry fee back.
Right. Now there is an entry fee for a marshal, right?
It's $100.
But you get it all back in swag. Even if there is, you get it all back in swag.
Okay.
Johnny Morris and other sponsors, you get it all back in swag.
Gotcha.
Here's a question real quick. Tips on fishing deep middle, like the middle of the lake. He can't catch them in the middle. He's always fishing from the bank. If you're talking about like a pond, well, it doesn't really matter. Points, definitely key in on points, but throw something that's heavy, like a Carolina rig or a 3/4 ounce jig to drag around. And maybe
know what the bottom feels like.
Right. Fill the bottom, and maybe you'll find a couple brush piles out there. A lot of if it's a conservation, lake, a lot of these
rock piles.
Rock piles. A lot of the conservation
composition change,
right?
But a heavier weight. Like if you're gonna throw a Carolina rig, don't throw a finesse Carolina rig. Throw a
1 ounce,
1 ounce weight out there, tungsten weight on fluorocarbon, so you can feel. Heck, even throw it on braid, so you can feel absolutely everything.
And you may have a trip, like if I'm thinking of, say you're on a 10-acre lake or something. You may have a trip where you just spend several hours going around the lake and doing your own mental map of the lake. I hit something hard here. There's a stump right here. There's a little brush pile right here. Seems to be shallow. Then all of a sudden it gets a little bit deeper, and then kind of keep a mental. You could even take a little, like a little notebook and kind of draw a little sketch of the lake and kind of make some mental notes on there, write them down. And then the next time you go, you'll have, an ideal of some of the different changes that are out there deeper. And that'd be my suggestion.
And if you're talking big lakes and you're in your own, a good mapping cards, everything,
Right.
Speaking of little lakes, have you been by Capel Hall?
No.
You didn't drive by that? It's complete. So Capel Hall, there's a little like city lake lagoon where all the goose poop is accumulated for the last 25, 30 years. And I think it was like 4 foot deep. They drained it, dredged it, and I bet it's got almost 25 foot of water in it, or 25 foot of depth in it now. The conservation, I guess, has came out and they've built structure out there. They got 2 different fishing piers that they've created.
Really?
It's gonna be.
Did they make it bigger, or is it the same size?
How did they dredge that, JB?
But how do they dredge it?
They dredged it, you said?
Yeah, they dredged it.
Basically put all that muck up on the barge somewhere and then had it hauled off.
Well, so it's like what, 2 acres?
Yeah, it's maybe 2 acres. It's
okay.
Small.
So they took it and they put it on a dump truck and then they dumped it out of town somewhere. I don't know, offsite facility that was dedicated to that.
They dumped it in the former mayor's yard.
I'm pretty sure you could find a number of farmers that would want that.
Yeah,
would love that.
That's premium soil there.
But they all the whole place is. I need to go over there and like take a couple pictures because eventually I'm gonna have to go fish it because it looks.
Is
juicy.
it dry?
It's dry right now.
Oh, so you can see all the.
Oh yeah.
juice.
Oh
okay.
yeah.
Nice.
Well, so they emptied it to do this. They didn't do it with the water. I've seen them do it in the Mississippi where they dredge stuff.
No, they drain
put it up on a barge and then they take it and all that.
No, they drain this lake completely just to do all these renos on it. So
nice.
it looks
always
pretty
been my
there.
dream to be able to afford property and have my own traco and go out and make my own lake with my.
I don't even need a big lake. I just need like
no. It could be an acre. It doesn't even have to be an acre. It could be a half an acre. But
I do have a nice lake. I didn't build it, but it's got 18 foot of water on it. So
Andy says he may be heading to Guntersville first weekend in November. What would you throw? Definitely a frog.
And
hey, Andy, the guy I pre-fished with on Pickwick, Joe, fished the Spro Frog tournament down there in Guntersville. And I think he said there was like close to 300 boats and only 60 something people weighed in fish. So that was 2 weeks ago. I think it's going to get better. Hopefully to get better. But yeah, frog, man. Got to be throwing a frog.
Yeah, frog, and don't sleep on that ribbit. I mean, you can throw the Spro, but don't sleep on the ribbit.
Yeah, ribbit's a good one.
Yep, just the ribbit.
Big swim bait maybe too.
Yeah.
Trap.
Punching.
Yeah.
What's your go-to punching bait?
Mine?
Yeah.
It's been a burner crawl, a Gambler burner crawl. Oh, speaking of that, I'll show you a new product by Gambler. I don't know if these are for sale yet. I think they are. They probably are.
Are you even allowed to show these? Or?
Yeah. I think so. But this is a new product by Gambler.
Golly.
Stinky, isn't it?
It's rough. It's rough.
It's called the burner crawl though.
That's not the burner crawl.
No, I'm sorry. The boxer crawl. Yeah, boxer crawl. I don't know if you can see that or not. Anyway, it's a little finesse punch bait.
Oh,
It's got these little bulbs on it, but it's kind of like it's about the same size.
Probably float pretty good, I bet.
Yeah, it's the same size as a BB cricket, which is another bait that I like to punch when it gets really, really tough. And it's got these little bitty legs on there. It's kind of meaty. It'd actually be a really good jig trailer too, like coming up for this cold water. Something like the Crockett Gator, like swamp. I think it's called swamp bug. It's about the same size as that if you're familiar with that. Different profile, but these little kind of finessey crawfish in like tough situations, cold water, or when the fish have been pressured a lot. But it comes in I don't know, I think I got 4 different colors. There's like a shadow silver. This is probably like my favorite color right here. I said the burner crawl for a punching bait. This right here is shadow silvers.
What's the color you like?
Yeah, this right here is, can't really tell, but it's got a little bit of silver flake in it.
Some
blue. It's been a really good color. And then they got like watermelon and some green pumpkin chartreuse, but
I'm looking it up right now.
Are you? Okay. Yeah, that the burner crawl has been one of my favorites for sure. And then just standard steel beaver. Your Actions Innovation beaver is hard to beat.
It's not. What's that new? Don't Berkeley have a new little punch bug looking thing, or is that Strike King I'm thinking of that has?
I got the punch bug.
It is called a punch bug. I think.
That's Strike King. Yeah.
That thing's pretty wicked.
It reminds me of like a missile, like a D-bomb.
It's a cylindrical body, and then it's just got the little rage flappers on the back.
But it's got that like thin sides, like a D-bomb does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's your favorite punching bait?
Kinky beaver.
Kinky beaver. Okay.
Yeah, me too.
That's the that's the bigger of the.
Can't go wrong with kinky beaver.
Of the ones, but I've been punching that BFE.
I've punched just a straight tube before too.
That's kind of like that BFE without the tubey tails.
Right. Just something that's not going to hang up. That's going to get through there. That's the thing. I
don't really know if it's the bait or if it's the spot. I think more times than not, it's a spot. After I was telling you this, I don't know if I told this on here the other day, but I was punching and I came up to this little brush pile beaver hut that I could see. And this was 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I saw a bass, like a 2.5 pounder sitting on top of this beaver hut in like 6 inches of water. I saw her sitting there. It's like, there's no way that this time of the year I'll flip something in there without spooking her off. Mind you, a 1 ounce weight with a kinky beaver on it. So a big profile bait. I flipped it in there and I saw her like flick. Now I flipped probably a good 1.5 feet, 18 inches to 2 foot away from her in the center of it, because I couldn't get to where she was at. And I seen her flick her tail and then come back to right where she was at. I was like, that was weird. And I saw my line twitch and I set the hook and she had it. So she moved, let's say, 1.5 feet to my bait and back and spun around before I even knew she had my bait. To show you how fast they hit that is absolutely insane.
Well, I've said that a million times, JB. They don't make a reel fast enough to get your bait away from a bass if it wants it.
Not a bit. Not a bit. And she had it, hooked her, pulled her. When I set the hook, she went under the limb that I was on and out. So she had that bait in a split second. So when you're punching, before it hits the bottom, you've already got bit if you have one on. They're not down there looking at it, playing with it. They're going to eat it.
Do you think that big weight moving all that water and crashing into the bottom got her attention that much faster?
It didn't have but 8 inches to move, but I would say, yeah, like she saw something hit the water. She wasn't focused on me at all, or she would have been long gone.
Yeah, I've had some days at Table Rock on that clear water pitching a 1 ounce jig in 8 inches of water. And that thing crashing through there just gets their attention. And at Table Rock, you would think you could see them, and the next thing you know, your line's just running off. I mean, you don't even.
Oh yeah,
it's crazy to me. They're such good predators; you can't see them. It's nuts. Right.
Todd said, "Does anybody have trouble with the loose bait casters not disengaging? If so, what's the trick to fix it?" I got a couple that do that. I think it's a clutch bearing or something in there. I mean, they disengage, but they make a little noise. It still casts fine.
Buy more
like pushing the button down.
Yeah, well, when you cast,
it sounds like it's halfway pushed down or something.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know exactly. I had actually, when I was fishing with Doug, we had this conversation. He took them apart and figured out exactly what it was. I can't remember what it was, but
that's not the problems that I've had with Luz.
I don't know if that's something Trey would mess with or not. I think he just kind of cleans reels. I'm not sure if he works.
Yeah, he could probably tell you what was going on though.
Yeah.
Mine is on the Luz.
Spend a little more money on your Luz reels and you probably won't have that issue.
Yeah.
Like everything else.
I don't have the problem. Even some of the BB ones that I have, they do that. But the tournament pros that I've got, I've had no problems with those at all. And they're like,
you go up. You get above a couple $100, you ain't gonna have that problem.
Yeah, they're $199. That's a lot of money for a reel. I do understand.
It is.
But, I've had those for probably 14 years, 12, 14 years, and I've got 6 of them, and I've had 0 problems with any. And I don't even clean them that much, to be honest. I clean them like once a year.
So I sent it to Trey, and sometimes he's like, "Brother, you might have not wanted to wait so long." That's okay. Well, it happens.
I do mine in the winter.
You get what you pay for.
I agree. I'll completely 100% back you on that.
I mean, you don't have to go to the top. Somewhere happy in the middle there. You're good.
Here's a question. Braxton says, if it's a narrow channel and the boater is fishing both sides, is it open to the co-angler at that point? I would say yeah.
Yeah, I would say yeah.
If you're going one direction and he's just kind of fishing.
Braxton, if he didn't have that conversation with you, it's open. That's my opinion.
Right. All right.
It's on him. It's on him to have the conversation with you. If not,
he's
asking for trouble. He can't read minds. You can't read minds, Braxton.
And if you're worried about it, ask.
Yep.
Say, do you mind if I make this cast? And they'll let you know. I did that Saturday or Friday with my boater because we were fishing real tight to the bank. He was throwing that underspin, and he said, "Man, I don't mind if you throw up here." And so I made a couple casts, and I was like, am I okay with that cast? You all right with that cast? After I kind of made the cast that I was wanting, he's like, yeah, man, you're fine. And it was definitely up towards the front of the boat. But that's the kind of cast that I had to make to cover the water, or else you're just fishing 5 foot of water.
We've all had that boater where we're like 3 or 4 foot off of the ledge or the rock or the bank, and one of two things is going to happen. You're going to get hung out to dry.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say 99 out of 100 times the boater's like, dude, cast up here. I know it's a pain in the butt, but cast up here. He goes, I mean, you're literally casting over his head, but you guys are working together. He knows that you're either going to be fishing 40 foot of water out of the back of the boat backwards, and he's going to have to back up to get you unhung when you hang up your Lucky Craft or your custom wiggle wart or whatever you're throwing. He'd rather just deal with you coming up front with him.
Right.
So
I've been parallel in the bank before, and I was saying, well, we're both going to parallel. You're just going to be casting short of me. I've already covered some of the water. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Just don't throw where I haven't thrown yet.
And you can kind of
parallel the bank.
You can kind of look at where his bait is landing. It's hard to do, but he's going to be casting, let's say his bait's landing point A and then point B is 10 foot down the bank more. If you can cast in that 5 foot in between, you're getting somewhat fresh water. It's still somewhat used, but if you can actually get in that rhythm to where you're casting in between his cast, you're going to snag those fish that aren't taking his bait. But you got to really be focusing on. It's hard to do. You should be focusing on your own cast so you know where you're casting next. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I always pick a spot on the bank that I'm casting to. So if I catch one, I know what spot I was casting at. I can remember that.
And you can kind of get in sync. Like when when he casts, you can cast at the same time. So your stuff's landing like 5 foot from his or 10 foot from his. And get into kind of a groove right there, and that way you're covered.
You just don't want your line landing on your boater's ear.
Right.
I had that happen in the Toyota series. I'm like, this isn't working, dude.
DJ,
I had it, but this one I'm rolling over.
DJ said not mentioning any names, but I know some guys that ate a goose from Capitol Lake one night. Quite a bit of hooch was involved. I bet it was.
Nice.
I hope they cooked it. It wasn't like an Ozzy Osbourne biting a goose's head off on stage or something.
Oh,
some goose sushi.
Yeah. Phil Tube's a great punch of bait for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
That's his punches structure bug, June bug. Yeah, any of that kind of whatever your favorite creature bait is.
You got to have confidence in it, and there's no sense in throwing it.
Yeah, click that one up from Doug. That's what he's talking about.
So 2 loose reels with the same clutch plate have the problem. BB1 is one of them.
Yep. I've got a couple of BB1s and they make that screeching noise.
So the problem that I've had with loose, and I've kind of determined what it is in the dead of winter when it's super cold out, the anti-reverse disengages.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, nobody's going to have a good day, I promise you, because anti-reverse is there when you hook set. And usually in the dead of winter, I'm throwing a jerk bait. And when you go to jerk your jerk bait and it disengages, and now you got a backlash.
Backlash.
Yeah, that happens to me a lot. That's what I've gotten the habit of putting my thumb on the spool.
And when you forget is when it happens, or when you like get that DT6 or that square butt hung up, and you give her one of those pops, and she goes, woof,
yep.
And then you just put your head down, you reel it up, and you cut it all off.
But you grab another reel. Yeah.
The solution to that is very, very time consuming and a pain in the butt to fix, but you have to disassemble. For me, I disassemble the anti-reverse bearing, which has a cage, 6 steel cylinders, and a cage that holds it all together, and you clean that, and then you run it dry. And when you run it dry, it won't stick. But you also got to deal with a little bit of noise at that point. So,
yeah, Braxton.
Any reel that you buy probably doesn't have the world's greatest grease and oil in it. You probably should just fix that right out of the gate.
Yep.
Maybe not day one, but after 30 days of using it, you probably got to put some.
It usually has too much grease in it. That's
a good point. Yeah.
So most reels come. This is coming from the guy that does all of his own reel work and has done all of his own reel work for years. Every reel that I've opened up brand new out of the package has had way too much grease in it.
Not quality enough grease to start with generally.
Yep. Too. It slows your performance down. And I'm the same way. I'll use that reel for 6 months, get it through halfway through the season, and then put a really, really good cleaning on it. But light, if you do your own cleaning, light grease, very, very light grease. And
what do you use, JB?
I use Shimano drag grease.
Okay. I use the stuff from Lucas Oil, I think.
So I have I have 2 different oils that I use. And I'll be perfectly honest with you. I don't know what either one of them are called. One of them's a little bit thicker, has a higher viscosity oil. And then the other one is a very, very, very thin oil, almost the consistency of water. But I bought that one specially off of some website. It was like $10 an ounce or something crazy.
Right.
But usually you just got to, so you got to know what to oil and what to grease if you're getting into that.
Yes. That's why I send mine to Trey, because I don't.
Exactly. And for
I
me,
want to concentrate on fishing, let him handle making my reel work. Yeah.
It's been trial and error. And for me, that's my zen in the winter when I'm not fishing, there's snow on the ground and it's sleeting. Like 7 hours and cleaning 7 reels. That's put on some good music, put on a couple of good podcasts.
And just do it while you're watching a football game. I mean,
if you watch football, yeah, but that's fun.
Right.
I don't watch football.
Shots fired, man.
I'm sorry.
Hey, let's talk about the Toyota series or the Toyota Owners Tournament. I'm curious about that.
Did you fish it?
Yes.
Yeah. So you went down. When did you go down?
I got down Thursday morning. I drove to Greg's place Wednesday night and stayed all night there because I forgot something there from the last weekend at the tournament at the Warrior William deal. I left something in the house, so drove down, got that, spent the night, and then drove down Thursday morning. I got on the water unfortunately, I was staying in North Indian Point, which is where Silver Dollar City is, out on that point, and it was right when Silver Dollar City was opening. So I sat in a line for about 50 minutes to get down the road to get to where I was going. So I didn't get on the water till about 10 Thursday morning. So I practiced Thursday all day, the rest till dark on Thursday. Got out on the water about 7 on Friday, fished till damn near dark. And then me and Greg got down about 10 on Saturday. We fished till about 12:30, got off and went to the meeting. So I was having electronic issues, man. I was trying to update my hummingbirds because they weren't syncing. My Solixes weren't syncing. So I run map off. I have one mapping card on my Solix at the console that the one at the front, the bow, reads, and they weren't communicating. So I tried to update. Update didn't take. Long story short, the one in the back wouldn't even come on at this point. And the one at the front didn't have a map card, right? So I finally took that map card out and moved it up to the front. And I was just getting frustrated with that whole thing. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go fish where I know there's brush piles and I know these docks where there's brush hanging on them, like, underneath them. Because my whole plan was to use the mapping cards and fish offshore a little bit, at least in practice, to see if I could get bit out in 35, 40 feet of water. And I went shallow on Friday and caught them really good. Like, I'm talking less than 3 feet of water at Table Rock off of some docks and some brush. So Greg came down. He brought a new mapping card. This is a weird story, Gabe. Like, we're getting gas on Saturday before we go to the meeting. I said, all right, I'm going to try to turn on the Hummingbird at the console. And it came up in simulation mode. And then I shut it off again. And then everything linked up and worked fine. Like, I don't know what was going on. But I'm glad it happened because it made me go shallow, because I wouldn't have normally have done that this time of year. But I was just like, if I don't have a map card, it's like at Table Rock, it's like real first world problems. You don't have them. You only got 3 units working and not all 4 of them. So I went shallow and I caught some big green ones shallow. I caught in practice, I caught a couple 4s and a couple 3s up shallow, largemouth. And then I went out a little deeper, 15 to 20, and caught some big spotted bass, like a 3-pounder and a 2.5-pound small spotted bass. So I had a good plan, and it ended up working out. I only had 4 fish. Poor Greg, he was struggling, and I don't, it's one of those things. It was him threatening to sell all of his shit and quit fishing altogether, because he just had two tournaments in a row where he just didn't get a bite. He didn't even get a bite. He never swung in the Toyota tournament. He just was one of those days for him. But we had 4 that went 10-10, I think. So we had the right fish. I had one that barely measured, a spotted bass that barely measured, but we ended up in 19th out of like, it was close to 200 boats, somewhere in that neighborhood in the 190s.
Yeah, that's solid.
Always a great time. But what's weird is the guys that won it, Gabe, were the same guys that won it last year. They're local. And they caught their fish completely. I mean, there's some guys up there in the top 3 or 4 that caught them in 50 to 60 foot. And then there was a lot of guys that also caught them super shallow. So it was kind of weird. I just felt like I didn't see anybody fishing the stuff that I was fishing. And I felt like, well, at least my fish aren't being pressured, fishing up shallow, fishing docks. I was a little worried about it because tournament day was cloudy and overcast. And I'd been fishing. It was 20-mile-an-hour sustained winds on Thursday with gusts up to 35. So it was windy.
That's what Russ is saying.
It was windy. And yeah. I was in the Cumberland City area, Russ, is where I caught my fish. And I caught a key fish at the end in North Indian Creek. But what was weird is I went back there, Gabe, because I caught some nice smallmouth off of these docks. Couldn't get a bass, couldn't catch a smallmouth. Caught a 3-pound largemouth on the same docks. Pitching not the last stall, but the swim platform up against the bank, skipping through a hole about that big is where I caught that fish. And all my fish came behind the cables on floats in water where you thought you could have seen them. Never felt a single one of them bite, just my line swimming off. Never felt anything bite. Just looked up and my line was moving. And 18 inches of water underneath some of the floats weren't even in the water because the lake's 7 foot low. The float was hovering 6 inches above the water on the walkway, so I'd skip under the cables underneath that shadow and all of a sudden my line would swim off. And that's how I caught every one of my fish. And I was doing it with a combination of a Jewel 5/8 ounce football head, trimming the skirt down, and then that same half ounce football heavy cover finesse Jewel, and both of them in peanut butter smoke with a green pumpkin purple yum trailer, tips and chartreuse. And I threw a spinnerbait. You've been proud of me. I threw a jerkbait in the wind and caught some fish, but there was no wind on tournament day. Couldn't get a bite on a buzzbait. Some of the guys that were in the top 10 caught them on a buzzbait. Dirt shallow on a buzzbait, parallel in the back. So,
I love ice cream too.
You don't even have to be a tournament fisherman.
I always want to have an ice cream truck. There's a dude that drives an ice cream truck here locally. He's you know what I'm talking about?
The green one?
Yeah. The one that's all like jacked up.
He's got hydraulics in it. He'll be going down. He's got like probably a $10,000 system.
Ice cream man.
Yeah, he's like straight up Debo. He's like,
yeah. And then
big worm. Big worm.
Big worm. What's up, big worm?
Big worm, big worm.
But when he'll be going down the road, he'll just drop it and just sparks will fly.
Yeah, he drags it. Yep.
Well, you missed out this year, Gabe, because McClellan was there. He's sponsored by Andy's Custard now, and they were passing out custard while you were waiting in line.
Nice.
Yeah.
I didn't miss out. So who all was there, like the pros this year?
The typical Toyota. Ike wasn't there. It was Van Dam, Matt Harry,
Brandon Lester,
Scroggins, Swindle, and then your classic champ, Christie, and your Red Crest champ, Bobby Lane.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was really cool. Again, Johnny Morris and Toyota just roll out the red carpet. They gave away a 2022 Toyota 4Runner TRD Pro. Happened to be sitting at the table with the lady that won it. We've been having a conversation for over an hour and a half while we were having dinner and just sitting there having drinks, and she won it. So we were super excited for her, and that was really cool.
That was a straight giveaway though, right?
Straight up. Yeah. They gave away a Tracker 4-wheeler, $2,000 gift card to Bass Pro, and then that TRD Pro. That happens pretty much every year now. Last year it was the new Tundra they gave away for the 10th anniversary. They just roll out the red carpet, man. They really do. Gabe knows. He's been there. You get a bag full of stuff worth $300, $300 probably just for showing up. And
see, I always love when Gabe goes because that means he's going to get something that doesn't fit him and it's going to fit me.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course they feed you twice, the meeting the night before and then at the weigh-in. So, and this year I took off the day after. Today I didn't work. I stayed the night and drove home because last year, JB, me and my son went. He had finals. There was a tornado warnings rolling in. They said, don't come weigh in because there was 300 boats because it was a 10th anniversary. I weighed them on my scale. I had 3 fish for almost 10 pounds, like 9, 12 or something like that. And I didn't go weigh in. And it only took like 11.5 pounds to win it. I would have been in the top 5 and I didn't even go weigh in.
I remember Gabe telling me about that.
Yep.
Jay Beffa called me and said, man, I didn't see your name up there. What happened? And when I told him how much weight I had, the phone just went silent. And I knew that was a bad sign. So I told Swindle on stage this time, I was like, there ain't no way in hell, whether I got 1 fish for 4 pounds or whatever, I'm not weighing in. Plus, they play down 31 places, 30 places, and then 31st gets more than like 15th. They give them like 1,000, first out of the money gets like $1,000 Carhartt gift card. And
that's awesome.
Then they randomly draw some names at the end and give some money away. I think Costa gave away at 15th. You got your check and 2 pair of Costa sunglasses. So, they really, it's just amazing the amount of support Toyota gives to the bass fishing. It's crazy. You think about it, they support bass fishing, Supercross, NASCAR. In my opinion, they're almost more American than the freaking Ford and Chevy at this point.
Go to the Classic, go to the Bassmasters Classic and look at the Toyota booth. I guarantee it's the biggest booth there.
And they got some of the biggest pros under there, and Christie has been running a Toyota for 15. I think he said he's on his 13th Toyota, and he's not sponsored by him, but he does it for the bonus bucks, and it's a towing machine. I mean, it's. I
Cruz
love my
talked
Tundra.
about that on a Facebook post on his new Toyota Tundra that he just got. I think it was Cruz just the other day. He's like, I don't even get sponsored by a Toyota. I have no affiliation with Toyota. I just run a Toyota, and he was running the base model. Like that wasn't the base model, but it was like the next model up. Keep in mind, this is a vehicle that he's going to be in all year long, traveling for the Elite Series.
And the 2022 model, that V6 twin turbo hybrid, is just a freaking beast. I mean, I love my 5.7 iForce, but I really, really want the new Toyota. I'm trying to talk myself down from going and getting one because mine's only got like 45,000 miles on it, and it's kind of against my religion. Toyotas are run for 500,000 miles.
So what's the qualifications to be in the Toyota series?
A Toyota
Tundra
Tundra
series, but the Toyota Owners Tournament.
You have to own a Tundra, a Tacoma, a Sequoia, or a 4Runner that's less than 5 years old.
Okay. So that means you're buying one every 5 years.
Right.
Fair
Which
enough.
is sacrilege for a Toyota because they're like cockroaches and skateboarders. You can't kill them.
Right.
You really can't.
Right.
Whether it's their cars or their trucks.
Gabe's in there laughing at us right now.
They sponsor the sport we love, so why not go out and support them? I mean,
they're probably one of our biggest sponsors in our sport.
Absolutely, 100%.
I mean, you got like
not just our sport, NASCAR, Supercross, motocross. They're all over the place.
Red, white, and blue American sports that we all love.
Yeah, I mean, Swindle even said when he was emceeing, he was like, he gets a little shit at the gas station in Alabama. Why are you driving that Japanese truck? He was like, because I've been to the plant and they employ a lot of good, hardworking Americans just like you and me, and they take care of their people. It's like one big family. That's why I drive a Toyota truck.
Right. If I could justify buying a truck, not a new truck, but a truck besides the truck that I already have that has no payment on it, I would seriously consider a Toyota.
I've fished 8 of these, JB, and I've never bought a brand new Toyota truck. They've always been used.
Well, so I don't drive I have a company vehicle. So Monday through Friday, my truck sets. Saturdays and Sundays is the only day of the weeks that my truck gets out. So it's hard to spend that kind of money on a truck.
Agreed.
The driveway for all but 50 to 100 days a year.
Right.
So I don't put 5,000 miles on my truck a year.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, like I said, my Tundra's got 46 or 47,000 miles. It's a 2018, so this was my last year. But my team partner, Greg, his wife has a 2021 TRD Pro 4Runner, so we're gonna roll with him next year. But unless I really want, I'm sorry, I know I don't need it, but I really love that new Tundra. I really want to go get one.
Well, I mean, if you want to get rid of that other Tundra real cheap, I mean, just give me a call.
I won't be real cheap, I'll promise you that.
Hey, nothing.
With today's used, you try to find a 2018 Tundra with 46,000 miles on it, you're hard pressed.
You try to find a used truck, not a 2018, a used truck with under 100,000 miles on it that they don't want sticker for.
Right. Yeah. Well, my dealer told me when I went to I kind of talked about trading it in on a new TRD Pro Tundra, and he was like, I told him what I had, and he said, I can almost give you what the sticker was for that truck in 2018 because we'll be able to sell it that quickly.
Yep.
And they're still going to make money off of it at that point.
Oh, absolutely.
That's the crazy part. I mean, my buddy had a Tahoe, a new Tahoe, or his wife had it, and with 15, 20,000 miles on it, the dealer called him, says, hey, we want to buy your Tahoe back. And he's like, okay, what price? And he shouted the price. He goes, well, hell, that's $7,500 more than I paid for it, 8 months ago. He's like, I know.
Right.
And he told him make it 10,000 more and he'd sell it. And he goes, done. Like 10,000. And he bought it brand spanking new.
My brother had the same thing. He had a Chevy HD diesel, Duramax diesel, and they gave him about 10 grand. He got about 10 grand more than he paid for it as a year old.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Wow. That's not good to hear.
Yeah.
We're getting ready to think about buying a new vehicle.
It's
wrong time.
I hate to say it, but it's the wrong time.
Everything's the wrong time right now.
Well, it's the wrong time to buy anything, whether it's gasoline or food or whatever. But
I got to address this question or this comment right here. Gary says, my brother Brian still has a DQ gift card for you from Miss Huber.
Explain.
Okay. So earlier this year, the BFL and the LBL division, which is Kentucky Lake, Gary won the tournament on the co-side. I finished third. And I think it was the very next tournament on Table Rock, his brother Brian won, and I finished fifth. So the mom felt sorry for me because her boys were kicking my butt. So she got me a DQ gift card.
Is that your consolation?
That's the story behind that. Yeah, that's my consolation. She felt bad. She's like, I'm sorry, my sons are, being roughing you up. And so anyway, I got, apparently I got a gift card. I just saw Brian not too long ago, so he didn't say anything about it. Maybe he's used it already.
I'll say he's probably
been traveling. They've been traveling a lot, man.
He said he's probably used it, and he's going to give you the empty DQ.
It's probably got like
hey, there's worse things to have than some DQ soft serve. That's the bomb, man.
Yeah, it's all.
You can keep that custard. I mean, I love that Andy Custard McClellan was having, but give me some DQ.
I like Sonic's ice cream a lot. Like the
Sonic's got some good ice cream.
Yeah, I'm more of a like a Baskin Robbins hand dipped.
That's good stuff.
Yeah,
I'm not a soft serve guy. I don't like if it comes out of a machine. I like it to come out of a tub. So.
Yeah, that's something to be said about that.
I like some blue.
Nothing better than homemade ice cream, man. Oh, Perryville at the seminary picnic, man, they do that homemade ice cream. That's to die for.
You got a flavor? What's your flavor of choice?
Like if it's hand dipped?
Yeah, hand dipped.
So I've been on a cookies and cream kick lately.
Yeah, that's always good.
But if I'm gonna eat it just straight up, I'm as wide as it gets, man.
Just vanilla?
Vanilla bean, man.
Vanilla bean.
I like vanilla bean with some chocolate syrup on it. That's
just a touch. No, I don't want like
just a touch.
I don't want it dressed in it. I just want to
see. I gotta have like old style vanilla or French vanilla. I don't like vanilla bean.
Really?
Yeah, it's not. It's just.
I like all of them. It doesn't matter.
Butter pecan's hard to beat too.
And Hershey's makes that special dark chocolate sauce. Now that's the bomb. I really like that on my ice cream.
Yeah.
See, and if we're really talking about it, I like frozen yogurt.
Froyo. I do too.
I love some froyo.
But that's soft serve though.
It is, but it's yogurt.
It's yogurt, so it's different.
It's different.
Okay.
It's different. I don't know what's
How about using that vanilla bean with a little Mountain Dew or Sprite to make a float? I like that actually too.
I'm out on that one.
Really? I love a Mountain Dew.
You don't like root beer floats either?
Nope.
Okay. What about a banana split?
Nope.
No bananas in your ice cream?
Nope. Okay. So before I came over, I had my my strawberry banana yogurt before I left the house.
What about ice cream on cake?
Yeah, I'm good.
Strawberry shortcake.
I'm
strawberry shortcake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I have strawberry shortcake though, it's going to be covered in strawberries and a lot of strawberry juice.
Right.
So
I like to keep them separate. I could eat that and then eat my ice cream separate.
I actually got about this much in a cup of ice cream, like from Sonic upstairs. It's not going to last.
Is it frozen?
It's not going to last through the night. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's from I've been working on it for like 2 days.
So you guys
grandma.
You guys been up here and had the Ted Drews before, right?
Oh yeah. I like the chip. What's it called? Chip chunk or whatever. It's like chocolate chips, but it's little shavings.
That's custard though, right?
Yeah.
Right.
See, my belly don't like custard.
Ice cream and chips. You mean like potato chips, Braxton?
So you say that my grandpa used to eat
Fries.
popcorn and ice cream together.
Okay. I've dipped my French fries in ice cream before.
Wendy's Frosty and French fries.
Oh, there you go.
Nothing better right there.
Trench going to the freezer.
I'm with Daniel T. Hot apple pie and vanilla ice cream.
Yeah.
I've traveled with Gabe enough to know that he always has to get in some ice cream.
I do.
And it's usually like a Wendy's too, right?
No, he just gets a tub of ice cream and eats it at the lake.
Yeah, when we go to the store and we buy groceries for a couple
for the
days,
week,
I sneak in a half gallon. I never eat. I only eat like a little bit, but I just like.
You know what? I like a good dip cone too, like those. Just
yeah.
With the nuts and the chocolate and
yeah,
with the nuts on the top and all that. I like that. That's good stuff.
See, they got me at Wendy's a couple years ago when I ordered a Frosty. They're like chocolate or vanilla. I'm like, there's only one way, right? There's not another way.
Right.
Russ says you guys always start on the food. I'm gonna get fatter. I'm already. What were we talking about last week? Or was it?
It was chili.
Oh, chili and cinnamon rolls.
rolls.
Dang, I still haven't tried that.
I haven't either.
That's funny you say that, Gabe. I was doing the Bluff City Outdoor Show, and I was in studio. I don't know, it's been a month ago or so, and somebody had a birthday party, right? And they had St. Louis has a big thing with the gooey butter cake, and then they had some brownies, and they offered me some. They were like, "Yeah, you go ahead and have some." I was like, it was one of the morning show guys there on FM Talk 94.1, and I was like, I'm trying to stay the same amount of fat as I am, so I'm going to pass on that. And he's like, I'm stealing that. Can I use that? And I was like, you can totally use that. I'm just trying to maintain the same amount of fat as I am. I'm not getting any fatter. Not really on a diet, but I don't want to get any fatter than I am.
Right.
I love it.
I want to stay at the same fatness. Stephanie says Reese's cup gelato.
I'm a Reese's Cup, Reese's Pieces fanatic.
Yeah.
I like to just take Reese's peanut butter cups and freeze them and just eat them frozen.
No doubt. There's no better way.
No, or it's frozen Snickers. Now my old teeth don't like the frozen.
Yeah,
Snickers.
you guys.
I can't do a frozen Snickers. Now, the Snickers ice cream bar.
That's the living. That's
what
living.
about the Choco Taco? Didn't they?
Oh yeah,
they're starting to bring that back.
They got rid of it, right?
They got rid of it. They're bringing it back. I think.
Okay. Yeah,
I think because they know it'll come back stronger than ever after they threaten to get rid of it. Like the Twinkie, right? They threatened to get rid of it.
Or the McRib. Didn't they
Surge?
get rid of the McRib for a couple of years?
Was it Surge?
Dude, the McRib is the most nasty thing on the planet.
It is. It's like, what is it? It's like a Spam.
That's mostly circus animals and filler, man. That's great F meat.
We used to have those in school though, didn't we? Like, wasn't the
similar,
or whatever?
Yeah. It's like some pressed meat.
They try to call it a pork steak. That ain't that's beaks and bungholes, man.
It's a giraffe. It's like part giraffe and rhino.
I'd eat giraffe before I ate that stuff.
I would too. I almost bought a giraffe yesterday. We were at the Macanda Fest over there.
Is it the Vulture Fest?
Yeah, the Vulture Fest.
Yeah,
we were over there and we walked in this shop in the very back, and there's this like wooden giraffe. It was like it was 6 foot tall. I was looking at it in the eyes. It was like 6'2", I guess. I was staring right at it, and it was just. Man, it was was staring into my soul, man. We had a little deal going on there, and $150, man. $150. I couldn't swing it with it. I just put it in our new house. I mean, there's really no reason
to the back deck of the boat.
There's no reason to buy it. It just looked really cool. It was like that.
I like
that
stuff
thing
like
that if you had a bunch of surplus money, you would buy. And I didn't have a bunch of surplus money, but I know where it's at.
Well,
got the business.
I know what you did with that surplus money though. So.
Oh, Rachel Ray's in the house. That's funny.
Yeah. Next is what's her name? Paula Dean will be in next. We'll be making fried chicken.
Frozen.
Hey, I'll take a little Rachel Ray and Paula Dean in here tonight. What do you say on that?
What's up, Craig? BIL Beardstown.
Oh, that's my brother-in-law.
Oh yeah.
I guess that's brother-in-law. Hello to brother-in-law. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I got it.
Makes sense.
He married the coolest woman in the world, my sister.
It's a great thing to say on a live stream.
Is she watching?
It's always going to be on there, and she can watch it over and over and over.
My sister's my biggest fan. She doesn't know shit about fishing. She's my biggest fan.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Hey, what about the I wanted to mention that Bluff City Outdoors show since you've been on there a couple times.
I'm on there every couple of weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a kind of just talk a little bit about that.
Oh man, it's great. I mean, what Mark's got going on over there, I mean, that's a tackle shop I went into as a kid, like in high school. And then obviously Mark didn't own it. It was called Rodney's Bait and Tackle back then. But man, he's taken that to the next new level. It's crazy. Now they got the big archery center and they got archery pros in there and some of the best like bow techs. They got the 3D. I think they got a 3D range. And me and you got to go over there and do a video with, and maybe we can convince Mark to hook us up and teach us how to sling an arrow or two. What we need to do is bring Dave home because that guy's freaking deadly with a bow. That's the guy we need to take over there and shoot. Yeah. I should have sent you the picture. I got a picture Dave sent me maybe a year or two ago. It was just a deer's heart with you'll love this, JB, with the imprint. You can see the perfect imprint of the broadhead in the heart when he cleaned that deer. I mean, he hit it dead in the heart. It was squared up, dead in the heart. And I've shot a bow in the past. You got to pick a lane. Are you going to be a hunter or a fisherman? I mean, I coach baseball and football, so it's like, got to pick a lane. I decided to throw kind of hunting outside of dove hunting to the side. But I'd love to go over to there and shoot a bow. There's something zen about shooting a bow. I respect everybody that hunts with a bow, whether it's like Cameron Haynes, the guy that stalks elk and all that for miles with a bow. That to me, that's just so pure. I mean, I'm a deadly shot with a gun. I can hit shit. If you got a 300 Win Mag, I could be smoking a cigarette and eating bacon and drop your ass dead. But being able to do it with a bow is special. It really is.
I can attest to that. I mean, I've killed a ton more deer with a bow than I have a rifle. But
you ever killed a duck with a bow?
No.
Is anybody doing that?
I don't think so.
You probably lose a lot of arrows.
Lose a lot of arrows.
Yeah.
I'm guessing Ted Nugent's killed a duck with a bow at some point.
Well, they make arrows that are made to shoot at flying objects. They're called flu arrows. So they have really big fletchings on them. And arrows will only fly like 30 or 40 yards. Now they just don't have a lot of oomph behind them. But yes, I agree with you guys. The bow and arrow
it's so much more.
That was my passion for years and years and years. It was fishing and bow hunting and duck hunting. And then
did you turkey hunt with a bow, JB? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I never killed one. Came close a couple times, but that's an elusive creature to kill with a shotgun.
Period. Yeah.
I mean, their claim to fame is they can see an eye blink at a mile. So
they can see a tick on the inside of the bark.
That's right.
Yeah, but then they get kind of horny and dumb. My buddy had one all puffed up fighting itself on the sliding glass window on video too. So I mean,
yeah.
Right. We all get dumb when we get horny, so it's
with the decoy. Weird. The guys that sneak up with
my
the decoy.
buddy's done that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they call it the reaping decoy, and you basically hold the decoy in a shotgun, and you just crawl up to them, and you can shoot them at like 5 or 6 yards because they're aggressive and they're horny, like you said. So, but no,
I'd be super easy to kill, JB.
I tell you what, the one thing that killed all of that for me was children. So
yeah.
Once you have kids, you got to pick something. Like you said, stay in your lane. For me, it was I had too many hobbies. So it was One or
me
the
too. Spread yourself thin. But yeah, the Bluff City Outdoor Show has been awesome. I mean, I love the fact that there's an FM station in the city of St. Louis that we're talking hunting and fishing. And they put on that big Catfish Classic every year over in Alton, and it draws a bunch of people. They give away, we think bass fishing tournaments are the only tournaments. Those catfish tournaments, it's not my thing. I don't catfish, but I get it, man. They have the same passion as us. They're out there trying to catch those giant cats out of the river. And it's really cool. I hope me and you can go over there since you've been on the show. They wanted to have you on again. Go over there and do, maybe do a little 10-horse Monty shoots an arrow thing over there with those guys. Yeah, you can find it online, and then if you're here in St. Louis, it's on 94.1 and 101.9, I think, is the two.
Hey, you're getting the PG version of M Squared. Trust me.
100%.
Yeah, I'd love to do that, man. I'd love to do that.
Yeah, I mean, hell, JB's got some experience with the bow. Bring him along; he can help us out. And maybe JB and Dave, the four of us, go up there, and those two can help us figure out how to sling an arrow.
It sounds like fun.
I'm in.
Fun afternoon.
It does. It does. I'm sure Mark would welcome it and have us 100%. Super good dude. Super good. That tackle shop is, especially if you're fishing on the Mississippi River going out of Alton, you got to stop there. They got all the bait, all the tackle you need to go catfishing. Man, it's a
for the folks that don't know,
first class operation. What's that?
For the folks that don't know, where is this tackle shop at?
It's 1 mile east of Fast Eddie's on Broadway in Alton.
Yeah. And then the Bluff City Outdoor Show.
It's on FM Talk 94.1.
Right?
Yeah, it's released on Saturdays, but you can find it on podcasts anywhere where you download finer podcasts, whether it's Apple or Google or
I'll try to link. Actually, I'll leave a link to that in the show notes or whatever. Because
link the one that me and you did for the BFL.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we did. That was kind of cool.
We did it live on the water.
Yeah, so that's gonna drop. That video is gonna drop Wednesday.
Did you get some of that of us talking on the water?
Yeah. So we did an interview out there on the water while we were practicing for the BFL Lake of the Ozarks, which was kind of fun.
Yeah, it was very fun.
Those guys are just trying to, do something that not a lot of people are doing up there in the St. Louis area. Just share the love of the outdoors on the radio station. It's pretty cool.
People don't realize there's plenty of people here in the city and the county that love the outdoors as much as you boys down there. We just happen to have jobs that landed us here. That's all. I mean,
yeah, I fished a couple catfish tournaments, Nick. They used to have them down here out of Thebes, right across the river. There used to be it was like once a month. There's decent sized catfish tournament. I mean, there would be like 20 boats, 30 boats.
You don't know it, but there's quite a few that go out of Red Star here in Cape now too. You get there in the summertime, and I'm leaving at same time as they're coming in, and all of a sudden,
them boys are spending the same amount of money on electronics and gear as we are.
Yep, definitely.
And they got the same setup that we got. Their boats are just bigger, aluminum, and they don't have carpet.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
They got big old live wells too.
Yes, they do. Most of them don't even have, I got a buddy that there for a while, he wasn't even running a live well in his catfish boat. It was just a giant tub, just like an old cattle trough. I mean,
like a horse trough. Yeah.
I got a friend of mine, I guess it's one of my best friend's brother-in-law. He just, I don't know if they won or got second out of the one in New Madrid, Missouri on the Mississippi. And he caught his PB blue, and it was like 79 or 80 something pounds
in a tournament.
Nice. And they had I think they had 123 pounds and 3 fish and lost.
Woo.
I think winner took like 145, 150 pounds, something like that. It was crazy. So
that brings back nightmares of when I had a 7-12 at Lake of the Ozarks and got second big bass. Somebody came in with like a 7-14.
Or the time that Tucker beat you and Greg, right? You had 23 something pounds, and he comes in with 25. Wasn't he right there towards the end too? He just kind of waited.
No, that was Mark Weesey Jr.
That was Weesey Jr. Okay.
Yeah, me and Greg got, man, we got that Triton money, we got all that. Yeah, he was in the first flight, and he just sat there with a live well full of fish and waited for everybody to weigh in. Drop that 25 pounds on it. We had 23.8 or something. He dropped like 25 on the scale.
That's just dirty, isn't it?
Yeah, but Tucker apologized, didn't he? Didn't Tucker apologize to you?
No, it was Mark Weesey.
Weesey apologized. He's like,
no, he didn't apologize. He just kind of. I love Mark. He's a good dude. I if I had a sack that big, I'd have probably done the same deal.
I was just gonna say that if you had a bag like that, this weekend I got a tournament on Saturday, and if I'm sitting on 14 and a half, 15 pounds, I'm gonna wait till they say, "Is there any more fish out there to weigh?" And then I'm gonna walk there and I'm gonna get a bag at that point.
Yeah, you know what? What's funny about that is I don't know this for sure, but I'm guessing. I say they were in the first flight. They might have been in our flight, but made sure it's Lake of the Ozarks. Make sure if you had that kind of weight, just make sure you get back.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And make sure you get back with your fish alive, and and then just wait to weigh them in. I get it. I totally get it, because that lake, Gabe knows, it'll beat you up, man. It doesn't matter. I mean, I have had guys tell me, "Why did you buy a 20-foot boat instead of a 21? Because you fish Lake of the Ozarks." I was like, "Man, dude, if your boat ain't 42 foot, it don't make a hell of freaking beans one way or the other. Because once it gets up, it don't matter if it's 20, 21, or if it ain't 42, it ain't cutting through all that."
Hey, I'll tell you something though, Mike. I fished day one in the Pickwick Regionals. I fished out of a 518. Hadn't been in a 518 in a while, with a 175.
Right.
And it was like a little wash tub out there jumping around. It was totally different. It was fast, like the whole shot, and like the mid range, super peppy. But even on that chop, it was like this. The next day, I was in a 21-foot Ranger. Just glided over all that same stuff that was around.
It's the difference.
But you weren't at Lake of the Ozarks, where you got
you're right,
from every direction.
But in a smaller chop.
Well, not necessarily a smaller chop. I learned this from a guy at Kentucky Lake, and he loved an 18 and a half, 19 and a half foot boat, like for the maneuverability. Same reason that you'd love it at Lake of the Ozarks.
Getting around the docks. Yeah.
Getting around anything, just getting around shallow water, shallow cover, any of that. But you had to have a 20 or 21 foot boat because of the distance between the waves.
The waves, yeah.
And that 20 to 21 was the right distance between waves where you could crash on the keel versus crashing on the pad.
Yep.
And
there's not much of a difference between a 20 and a 21. There's a huge difference between a 20 and an 18.
Yes.
Right.
And
it's you say a huge difference. It's literally
3 foot,
3.5 foot, 3 foot. But that's the difference of coming down square on a wave or gliding through a wave.
Especially when you're running with the waves, when the ass drops out from underneath you. I mean, I'll tell you what, I know Lake of the Ozarks is crazy and it gets rough, and I consider myself a pretty good boat driver from running down there all the time. But Table Rock, with a 25-mile-an-hour wind, when that water goes from 180 feet deep to 30 feet deep, back to 160 feet deep, up to 40 feet deep, those waves get weird as shit, man. And yeah, it was rough. It on Thursday when I was practicing, it limited where I wanted to go run. That's for damn sure. Different kind of weird than Lake of the Ozarks, but it's still pretty scary, especially when you're in the boat by yourself. It's like you know, I don't know. Maybe I'm a wuss, but running by yourself out there in a big lake is kind of spooky.
I've been out there, and I don't like Lake of the Ozarks. It don't matter how big of a boat you're in.
No, but I tell you what, right now, JB, from now, it's been worse because after COVID, all those people down there realized they could work remotely and work from their lake house. And then they can take their 49-foot carver and go to dinner, you know. So it's like those big yachts are out a lot longer than they used to be, for sure.
Yep. Well, even Kentucky Lake, I've seen Kentucky Lake be just brutal if they get the wrong wind and the right current, and man, it's
Pickwick can get really bad too.
Yeah.
To the fact when you're down in the trough of one of those big waves, you can't see who's on the other side of those troughs, kind of thing.
Right.
It gets nutty at Kentucky Lake too.
Yep.
It's a different kind of deal because it's all at least going the same way.
Yep. But they're big.
Lake of the Ozarks, it's coming from every direction.
Yep.
Anybody know anything
dangerous
about
What's that?
You know anything about Creve Coeur Lake? Phil's wanting to know.
I do not. I mean, I know people catch fish out there. I've never fished it. I've never fished it, but I've seen.
That's the lake that had the Asian carp in it, right?
It did. It did.
On purpose?
Yeah.
No.
I bet if Trey, I don't know if Trey's on here, but he probably knows something about it. That guy fishes all those little.
Is Pickwick Lake the one over by the park that had the big bike trail around it?
Yep. Okay. Yep. And they used to do the boat races over there, I believe. They did some like drag boat races or something on that years ago.
I remember when I lived up in St. Louis for a couple of years. I remember we drove past that lake to go to the golf course when we were.
Yeah, I mountain bike. I ride mountain bikes in those trails there at Creek Core.
But it's pretty flat on that one side, right?
Oh, it's very flat. Very flat. It's like a bottom. It's not too far by the crow flies to like the Riverport Amphitheater. You're not very far from there at all.
Okay. What casino was that over there?
Hollywood now. I think it's called Hollywood.
Was it Harris before?
It was.
Yeah, that's probably why I remember it more than anything, because we went to the casino quite often. So
you like to sling that 21? My wife loves to play blackjack.
It was poker for us.
Dude, that's.
My wife's got a brain like this big, and she cleans up at the blackjack table, buddy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Jim says he came into the St. Lawrence with a 522 and 10 footers.
Woo!
10 footers. Got a big hug from the. I'd be hugging you too, man. Definitely.
Yeah.
I know a lot of those guys that run that big water, they have 3 or 4 bilge pumps in their boat. You got to.
You know, before Johnny Morris took over from Ranger, they were talking about making a walleye boat type hull with a bass cap on the top of it for places like St. Lawrence and Kentucky Lake and places that got big water like that. Makes a lot of sense. I bet they would sell them up at Erie and the St. Lawrence, all that stuff.
I'm not downplaying 10 footers by any stretch of imagination, because that's some sketchy stuff, let me tell you. But from what I've been told, at least in those big 10 footers, you can
surf them.
You can surf them. You can ride in between them. You can get in a trough and run a trough, and then cut up and then run another trough, and then cut up and run another trough. You get on Lake of the Ozarks when, like you said, they're coming from the left or right, back and front.
Yeah.
And then that one that you don't see from that yacht that was, half throttle for
it went by like
10 miles,
3 or 4 minutes ago.
Yeah.
The most dangerous thing at Lake of the Ozarks is the one guy that still has his yacht out at November, and you're running 69 miles an hour, and all of a sudden you came up on those 6-foot yacht waves. That'll get your attention in a hurry.
You know what? Can you see that? Because I could never see those.
No, you can't see it coming. You just got. You got to kind of keep your, stay cautious of it. But good Lord, that boat could have left those wakes and turned into a cove long before you came there, and those waves are still out there.
Well, so that was the thing. Like, I don't have a lot of wheel time behind a big boat, but you watch some of these guys run, and it's like, I didn't ever see that wave, and neither did they. It's like, how do you but you just got to know what to do when you hit it and to react properly.
Right.
Not kill the throttle, not, you want to run through it, but you want to run through it cautiously.
We saw at Pickwick Friday, we were sitting there, we worked in these two little secondary points, because we caught 3 keepers off these 2 points. And there's some pretty big boats out there as well. And one of these big boats went by, and it left a pretty big roller. And there was a couple guys in the tournament that were coming from the river back to this creek, and they were running 70, and they didn't see what was up in front of them. And Nathan said, "Boss, you better slow down." And they hit the wave, and they came. We were 150 yards away. We were probably 100 yards away from them. And I saw like this much daylight underneath their motor.
That's going to hurt.
And they came down, wham. And then they hit again, wham, and they just shut it down. They sat there. They're in the tournament. They sat there. I'm not kidding you. They sat there for like 3 or 4 minutes and just kind of sat there. And then they idled and kind of did a couple donuts and slowed down. Then kind of did a couple donuts, and then they took off. So they were hurting. I guarantee they were sore in the morning, but you could see it unfold. It's just, and that I remember one time I was with you. We were at Lake of the Ozarks, and we came out of a cove, and there was a roller coming in that we didn't see, and it was in your old boat, the Relic, and we got some air. It was bad.
Yeah, I tell you what, that old Ranger that Ethan's running now, for a 19-foot 6-inch boat, because it was so heavy, it handled those waves pretty damn well. Those old You know, plus they're narrower. That seems to help a little maybe too. But yeah, Lake of the Ozarks is it's a special place when it comes to that. It's also a special place to. I don't think there's a lake in the country that has more 5-pound bass than Lake of the Ozarks. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, Brad says the Warrior William tournament had him gripping the OSH and my fat. Yeah, I don't see a few times. Yeah, man, that's it's not well that BFL. Same thing. Any tournament and any time of the year out there beside
on the way back to Wayne at the BFL game, the fastest I could go was like 30 miles an hour, and that was fast. And I'd slow down to, you know, kind of makes you wish sometimes that you put a 4-blade prop on and slow it a little bit down, you know, sacrifice that top end in the morning for that little bit easier to control the boat in the afternoon kind of thing.
It makes me feel fortunate that we got a really, really good lake that I don't have to deal with any of that on.
Yeah.
There's only been a few times where I felt kind of dangerous. Sometimes in a 10 boat, you get that really strong north wind and your nose kind of starts dancing.
Blowing it around.
Yeah, that's kind of sketchy.
Yeah.
See, but so oddly enough, like I'd be the guy that would want a 250 tiller handle because I feel more in control with my tiller than I ever did with a steering wheel in my hand.
Yeah.
And I'm attached to that motor.
Yeah. I remember there's a guy at Carlisle I used to see run around with a 150 on a tiller handle, which is as big as I've ever seen on a tiller handle. But
well, there was, I don't know if I tagged you in, I tagged a couple people in it. There was one of the crocodile hunting, not crocodile, alligator, I guess, alligator hunting guys down in Louisiana.
You sent that to me.
He had a boat made up for all that, and he had a 250 tiller on a John boat.
Do you have to just pin that to your hip so it doesn't fucking throw you out?
There's hydraulics in it.
Yeah, it's got hydraulics.
All right.
So,
all right.
And it's just like you would think. The harder you push, the more it goes. But when you're not pushing on it, you're not moving it, it locks in right there. But yes, you're right. The torque, if it didn't have that, the torque would eat you up.
It'd throw you out of the boat.
Yeah. Well, I remember, was it Randy? I think Randy Blanket that had a video about not having the foot throttle for running big waves. There's something to be said. I mean, there's something to be said about that. That's why I love those Evinrudes that had when they had those at the end, they had the fly-by-wire where you could choose if you wanted foot or. I think there's situations where having just a hand throttle would be advantageous.
See, I always said that from the first time I drove a big boat. It's like, I wish I could have the option for running a hot foot in certain situations, but other situations, even like idling
is much better to have.
I'd rather have it right here and just,
I'm
not on camera, right here and just be able to touch it with my hand versus having to push on that hot foot all day long. Where's your ankle out? Where's your foot out doing that all day long if you're idling?
I was coming back this weekend and got a cramp in the arch of my foot, and it was horrible.
Yeah.
It was like I didn't know what to do. I was trying to reach over there and run it with my left foot for a minute. Yeah.
Well, it's
having the option would be nice.
But if you're driving on a curvy road for like 30, 40 miles where you can't really put the cruise control, your ankle gets tired after a while.
And that's with hydraulics and easy pushing on a gas pedal, not pushing on a hot pedal.
I think Randy's point is when you come down, sometimes you accidentally give it throttle when you don't really want to.
Right.
I mean, there's something to be said about that.
That's what I was just going to say is when you're hitting those waves and you're bouncing, your foot's doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. You can't help it but go woo when you don't need to go woo.
Right. Randy always makes valid points.
Every time.
Well, being a short guy too, man, that's why I put the slider in my seat. I like to get up there where I can get my butt up off the seat, have that left foot pushing off of the fiberglass there to get me up. But most bass boats aren't designed for us 5'10" guys. They're designed for Gabe and guys with big bellies to get in behind the wheel. But
when'd you start fishing table rock?
probably, let's see. When did I meet Kara? 2001, probably.
Yeah, so I wouldn't really know either. Russ says Table Rock now compared to the 80s and 90s when it was one of the top 10 lakes in the U.S. I'd say it's still pretty dang good.
It's the one lake that I know of. You can go down if you get on the right stretch of bank where you can catch a keeper of all three species on the same stretch of bank.
There's still 20-pound bags bring in in tournaments.
Yeah, it's not as much as say Lake of the Ozarks, but yeah. But to see a bag at 17 pounds, what's really cool, like at the Toyotas, October is super tough at just about everywhere, but definitely at Table Rock, it's tough in October. To see a 17-pound bag that has all three species in it is pretty damn cool.
Yeah, right. And you had the potential to catch a 4-pound spot, 4-pound smallmouth, and obviously a 4-pound largemouth, not just little dink small Asian spots.
Yeah.
There's some big ones.
There's big largies in there. They just you gotta, for sure.
Thanks for correcting me, Andy. It was a 225 tiller.
225 tiller.
Still a lot of
stout, man. That's a manly.
I tell you what, the
Troy's a crazy son of a bitch. That's
the ones that get me are have you seen the Aussies that run the dinghies with the old hopped up Suzuki inline threes?
Yeah.
That looks like a lot of fun to me. I'm not gonna lie.
There's nothing about Aussies that are right. I love everything about it, but there's nothing right about it.
No, but that would be a lot of fun running a ditch with a tiller motor in nothing, just balls to the wall.
Yeah.
Little 5-horse kicker. Yeah, that didn't handle the wind very well.
No.
Hey, so we're about to wrap this up. We've been on here a little over 2 hours, but I wanted you to tell the story. You told this a long time ago when we had you on here. It's been way too long, but the story about the dead man hole. I know this is kind of random. I just kind of threw this on
it's
you.
It's a good time. I mean, we got a couple weeks from Halloween, and sounds like a good spooky story.
It's getting fall. It's fall-y. It's Halloweeny. Halloweeny.
I haven't heard the story, so
This story happened in opposite of that. It was July 4th weekend. I remember because my buddy Brad was home from San Diego, and me and a mutual friend of me and Gabe's, Dave Hall. Me and Dave have been buddies since we were pushing skateboards around and when we were 14, 15 years old. We fished this little spot on the Missouri side across from Alton, across the Clark Bridge. And I don't know if it's connected to the Mississippi. I don't know. It was a borrow pit when they built the first bridge. So the elevations do this, right? I mean, it's weird depths in there. It's 30 foot, it's 5 foot, it's 20 foot, it's 5 foot, 7 foot, 20 foot again. We were in there fishing, and it was summertime, so the water was super low, right? And we're cruising along, and I was like, what the hell is that sticking out of the water, Dave? And it was an antenna from a car. And so Dave, being Dave, he says, he strips off his shirt and he's like, I hold his legs, and he goes down underwater, and he's like, that is definitely a car. So he's like, hit the trolling motor, go up. I think this is the antenna's off the front. And he was like, scoot over a little bit. He goes down and he's trying to clean off what he thinks is the windshield. And he comes up with his hands bleeding. He's cut his hand on the glass where he was trying to clean the moss off the glass of the windshield, right? And I'm like, that's a freaking car, dude. There's a car in there, but it's backwards, right? So if it would have went in off the road, it would have had to go in backwards. No. I'm like, we were joking, like, well, who does an insurance job by running their car in backwards, right? So Dave finds where the windshield is. We take the paddle, I stick the paddle in he kind of guides it in. We get it in the door jamb, and I'm prying on it, and Dave's down there prying on it, and all of a sudden a bubble comes up and breaks. And as soon as it does, Dave just yaks in the water, like the smell hits him in the face, and he throws up like, oh my God. And then we do the math, like, well, the broken windshield is probably from somebody's face smacking the windshield. Long story short, Dave calls the St. Charles County, because that's in St. Charles County, sheriff. They come out and say, well, it's an insurance job. Dave's like, well, don't you want to see whose car it is or whatever? Months go by. This is July 4th, or right around the 3rd or 4th when this happens. Months go by. Dave calls again, and they still haven't done anything, right? They haven't went and checked. So me and him get the harebrained idea. My brother's an underwater rescue guy. I was like, I'll borrow a mask and we'll go down. I know a couple cops. We'll take the license plate off. And we make this big plan to do this, right? One of us is gonna go down there and try to use the mask and take the license plate off and get the cops to run it, you know, not St. Charles County, because they were just ignoring us. Before that happens, MoDOT was doing some work, and the lake had got even lower, and they could see definitely there's a car. They call the state police. The state police come in and say that's a car, and they're pulling it up out of the water as my buddy Dave's coming home from work, and he sees it. He cuts a freaking U-turn, drives around, and tells them that we've reported this 2 or 3 times, and nobody's coming to do anything about it. And turns out, sure enough, it's a dead body in the car. The guy was coming home like in February from the Alton Bell Casino, and it was icy, and he slid around backwards and flew off into this little lake there by the river. And they end up, I think this deputy sheriff lost, the guy that kind of punted twice, ended up losing his job with St. Charles County, because the news was there and everything. And Dave was like, I've reported this. They investigated it and figured out, yeah, he has.
Dave's like, wait a minute.
I've called this in 2 or 3 times. We found this in July and nobody wanted to do anything about it. And sure enough, yeah, it was a guy whose family didn't know what happened to him. They didn't know if he ran away, you know, purposely killed himself. They knew he went to the casino that night. So if it was my family, I would think, oh yeah, he made a bunch of money and he just freaking disappeared, you know?
Yeah.
But they had no idea. And turns out that, yeah, that's what happened. They drug him out, and it happened like we seen the car in around July 4th. And I think he came missing sometime in February when there was a snowstorm and ice, and he spun around backwards. And now when you go by there, much credit to MoDOT, they've extended the guardrail where that could never happen again. But it was crazy, man. It's like, I can't believe that a police officer would say, what's the big deal? It's just a car in the water. It's an insurance. Well, don't you want to know who that is? It's like, we got kind of lazy about it.
Especially when you pop that air bubble. Especially when that air bubble came up and it was reeking, man. I mean,
we're not detectives, but we were smart enough to figure out there's a dead body in that car. And the windows were rolled down about that much, which tells you when he went in, he probably hit the windows trying to get out, and then it shorted out because it was in the water and it stopped. And where it was between flooded timber. There was no opening to the doors, even if you wanted to. It was like wedged in between some submerged timber right there. And yeah, me and Dave, that's when we called it the dead man hole from that point on, because we knew we were the ones that spotted that body, and probably would have brought a lot of comfort to the family, you know, 8 months, 10 months before that, had they done their job. And it took a MoDOT crew sitting on their butts, eating lunch on the guardrail when they looked in there and noticed it, and went down there and inspected a little more, called
and who's to say if the lake wasn't low that nobody would ever found that car?
Never would have found it. And here's what's funny, JB. This lake doesn't have a boat ramp or nothing. We would take my Tahoe and drop my full-size Ranger in that son of a gun, put her in forward low and back her in and drop her off the edge and put her in there and fish. And unfortunately, when somebody sees a Ranger bass boat with power poles and 3H, Lowrance units on it fishing, they probably figure there might be some fish in there. So there's starting to be a little more boat traffic, aluminum boats and guys off the bank after they seen us fishing that. But me and Dave fished there so much, Gabe, at night. We go drop that boat in because the lights from Alton and the Alton Bridge would light it up at night. If you had a pretty clear night, you could fish all night long and see pretty good.
That's awesome.
Sweet.
Dynamite fishing in that little place. I don't know if it still is. I haven't been in since Dave moved down to Marion, but We used to fish it all the time, man. And zoo quality snakes in that place too. Me and Zave used to, I mean, you'd see just the biggest snakes, there was some kind of paddle.
I love that zoo quality.
I mean, they're huge. And then we seen some huge, what we think were paddlefish in there. We have no idea, but like the size of a small human come up and surface and go back down. Yeah, it's the Mississippi River that fed that thing. Who knows what the hell?
Could have been bull sharks in there. I mean,
yeah, or alligators, right? They found a few alligators up in Alton in the day too that have made their way up from the Gulf. So yeah, that was a crazy deal, man. It's funny because my buddy from San Diego, you know, he doesn't get to fish. Me and him were fishing buddies when we were in high school. He doesn't get to fish much anymore. Got to fish with him on my honeymoon at Lake Mission Viejo out in San Diego.
Really?
Troy Folkstead as a guide, yeah. Huh. And caught so many 4 and 5 pounders, which he said was a horrible day on that lake. But it was a blast. My wife that's why I'm married to her, because she let me go bass fishing on our honeymoon with a longtime friend.
That's a quality gal.
So there. I had a little private subdivision lake that I had access to fish. I think I told you about this 4 or 5 years ago. And you wouldn't catch any giant fish. So everything was 4 pounds, like on the nose, 4 pounds.
Well, that sounds horrible.
But it was the hardest fighting 4-pounder that I've ever had in my life. Because nobody fished this 27-acre subdivision.
They'd never been hooked before. They didn't know what was going on.
No, it was me, and I was the only one that fished it for like the first 2 years. And then same thing like you're talking about on the Dead Man Hole. Some guy that owned a boat saw me fishing there, tried to run me off. I'm like, dude, I got permission from that house, that house, that house, and that house. I said, I'm good. He's like, will you catch anything? I'm like, a few here and there. And then all of a sudden, you know, he's on his deck and you set the hook and you're bringing up this. I mean, I'm not kidding you. There were 18-inch 4-pounders just built like tanks.
Right.
Yes. And every one of them was the same size. You'd flip in there and watch the whole water just start shaking. You'd set the hook.
This subdivision lake?
Yes.
Yeah. So
check this out. I've got a couple like that.
Ruined now. It's ruined now. There's too many kids that figured out. There was like 6 houses in the whole subdivision when we moved out there. Now it's everywhere. So
my supervisor lives on that lake.
Okay.
I think I told you this. He told me last summer, it might have been this summer, somebody caught a 12 something out of there.
Yeah, see, I don't believe that.
I don't believe that. But it's got to be at least a 8.
So we've been in our new house for 3 years in December, so 2.5. So this was probably 6 years ago when they were 4-pounders. I could see an 8 or a 9 coming out of there, but not a 12. There wasn't the forge base in there.
He said it was. He said he saw 12
not this part of the country,
but I don't know. Anyway, there's probably an 8-pounder in there right now.
If you haven't seen a lot of big bass, when you catch a 6-pounder, it's a 12-pounder.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah. Even us, right? You go and catch 2.5, 3-pounders all day, and then you catch a 5. The first thing that you're thinking of when he comes up and tail walks at 25, 30 feet, you're like, oh my God, it's a 10.
Or that 2-pounder that blows up on a frog in a mat. Sounds like a 5-pounder sometimes.
Right.
And you set the hook and you bring them in. You're like, where'd the rest of the
fish
go?
So I got to go check footage from yesterday. I got one that went up, over, and down, like in perfect slow motion. You saw the whole fish above the mat.
Yeah. They'll do that.
My son Miles and Spencer and Miles, they live with my ex, their mom, and they had a subdivision lake, and I would go there and take them, and we'd walk the bank and fish. And those fish had never really been fished for. And there was a pre-spawn. There's this big flat in the back of it. The wind was kind of just rippling perfect through there. And I had a whopper plopper, and those fish had, oh my God, I caught like a 6.5, 7 out of this pond. Like it never seen, I mean, it just exploded on it. And then Miles started going down there and just catching big fish. And the same thing, the word got out, and everybody and their brother was that normally never fished. All of a sudden became, oh my God, you can catch giant fish out of this thing.
Yep.
And they just started, I don't think it's been fished out because nobody was keeping them, but
they're educated now.
It didn't get as easy to catch. It was, you throw that whopper prop across that flat and they would just fight over it, you know?
Well, for me, it started just like walking. There was only one spot that you could really fish from this lake without, fighting the snakes and the chiggers and the ticks.
I'm out on that too.
Yeah, so I would just walk. They had a boat ramp, a concrete boat ramp. They were geniuses when they poured this boat ramp, though. They stopped it at the water, the concrete at the water.
It's a high water boat ramp.
Yeah, it's a very high water boat ramp, and the overflow is at that level.
Well, like the dead man hole, the bass fishing's good when a guy's willing to just back his Ranger down into the water and drop it off.
So I would just fish off of that concrete boat ramp. I had 4 foot this way and 4 foot that way, and I was good with that. And I'd catch 6 or 7 a night on a spinnerbait.
Even really just making that cast,
just making the same. I had like a little cove, and I'd fan cast it, and I'd catch 6 or 7 in that little cove, and they were all 4-pounders, and it was all fun. And then, you venture out in the boat and you make one hot lap around the lake. And then, an hour and a half, you catch 27, 30, 4-pounders. You're like, all right, this was fun. Put it back on the trailer and go to the house.
And then you go to
I've had a couple like that. A pro secret for fishing farm ponds is just get yourself a set of chest waders and step off 3 or 4 feet and parallel those cattails or whatever is there. And instead of having to, like you're saying, worry about the snakes and you can't cast because there's trees and weeds. Just get yourself some chest waders and wade in there a couple feet and fish from there. Go in, make a few casts, come back out, go down, go back in.
Talk about Wren. That's what the crappie fishermen at Wren do.
Really?
Yep. Up on the north end in the trees. When it's flooded, they get out there in chest waders. You'll see them walking through the trees with a jigging pole and a stringer, like they're trout fishing at Montauk. They got a
dragging a stringer behind them. Huh?
Yep. And some of them are carrying their minnow bucket with them too. So.
Floating minnow.
Dragging a whole stringer full of sandwiches.
Heck yeah, man. Hey, let's close the show with this question real quick. So Brad says he doesn't know how to skip for crap yet. 5/8 is a bit hard on so I guess the question is
what size jig to skip
there with? You go. That's what I'm getting at. Thanks, man.
Half ounce. It's the perfect starting point. Half ounce. And if you really want to, the best combination now, it's not I've found is the Strike King Andy Montgomery. Now, this is not what I use. I still use a jewel football jig, but if you're wanting to learn an Andy Montgomery Strike King skipping jig in half ounce and take I think it's the 4.5-inch Rage Bug, cut a 1/2 inch off of it, thread it up there and super glue it because it's nice and flat, and just skip it like you would a rock, man. You want to start it way away from the point. Me and Gabe were talking about this. I'm claiming this right now. I'm going to call it sliding and not skipping. You don't want it hopping. You want it sliding across the water. And that's a good combo to start with. And you got to have the right rod combo. You want a stiff rod with a tip and a 1/2 ounce. Start with a 1/2 ounce Andy Montgomery skipping jig with a Rage Bug on it because it's nice and flat. Slide it up there and super glue it, and that thing will slide well for you. You want to start it way away from your target. What do you think, Gabe? I think if I'm skipping at a hole in the back of a dock, I usually start it probably 10 feet before the hole. It starts sliding 10 feet before the hole and goes back in there. And as you do it, you're raising the rod the whole time. As soon as it starts skipping, you're just raising the rod. And you got to have you can't have a cheap reel and do it. You got to have a good reel. You got to get confident and leaving it super loose. I got hardly anything on mine. Mine's super loose. Right here. And that new loose skipping reel that's got that shallow spool, even if you get a backlash, it'll come out.
So I'm going to add a couple things to your skipping. For me, and I know this sounds like little minuscule stuff, braid as a backing because it adds more.
If you don't have the skipping reel, that's perfect. That's perfect.
Adds more centrifugal force, whatever you want to call it. I don't know.
Gives you a little weight down there.
Gives you a little weight on your spool to help that spool continue to spin and spin evenly. So braid is one. When we talk about skipping or sliding a jig, don't start off with a dock with a hole that's the size of your jig. Go out.
Do it in open water. Do it in your driveway in the concrete. It'll do it on the concrete as it will the water.
Exactly. And you said 10 foot before. What I noticed this weekend, I had glass calm conditions one morning, and I'm just skipping, just to skip. No other reason but to skip. But I started at probably 6 foot from the boat.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
When
your day's going right, JB, that's what everything's working right. That's
the perfect rock skip isn't 6 skips, it's 25.
And they never come more than that far off the water.
If you can get it to just hover, you're basically wanting to hover right across the water. That's why that raising your rod, getting your line up, but that the right line combination, not having too heavy a line or too light a line, makes a big difference. And like you said, the reel, having it set and the confidence to throw it. So if you don't have the confidence to throw a bait caster under normal conditions, not skipping it set on 0, work on that before you ever start working on skipping.
And it's like golf. It isn't about how strong you are. It's about how smooth you are.
Yep.
You don't need to overthrow it. You just need to be smooth.
But you still got to throw it.
It's just a glorified roll cast is all it is.
Unless you're Dion
Hibden, you raise it at the end.
Unless you're Dion that can go like that apparently and skip 50 feet under a dock.
Well, those guys are superhuman. All those
Yep. What's your advice on skipping?
Yeah, I'm gonna go a little bit lighter on the jig.
Like 3/8?
I'm going 3/8.
You can do it with that.
Yeah, 3/8.
It's easier to go lighter than heavy. You got to be. I skip a 5/8 and a 3/4 on those big commercial docks at Lake of the Ozarks because I want that fast fall when I kill it.
Yeah.
But don't start with that because you're going to just never think you can never do it. You got to work your way up to that. So 3/8 isn't a bad starting point. I wouldn't argue with that at all.
Yeah, and half's good. 3/8 to half because your release point changes.
Well, remember, Gabe, when I got that shorter rod, I looked like I'd never skipped a day in my life. That rod's leaned up against my enduro motorcycle outside waiting to give it away because I can't use it.
Yeah, exactly. It was crazy. I mean, I picked it up and tried too, and I'm like, this.
We both look like we'd never fished before.
Yeah, it was actually kind of humorous. But another trailer, I would say, I can't remember. Did you say the crawl chunk? What'd you say?
I said the rage bug.
Okay.
Flat.
So I was going to say a beaver, but same concept. Something that's got a lot of, and you can also take that skirt. You can take the skirt and roll all the material up towards the side and the top to practice.
That helps.
So all you've got is that really flat plane from your trailer.
Definitely trim your skirt at the hook. Don't let it be a big bushy. You don't want a big bushy skirt on there.
No.
And the guy that just said he liked the driveway comment, just go out and stand on a milk crate.
That's what I was going to add to that. Yep.
A little bit higher.
And don't do it in the driveway. Do it in the garage floor because driveway's it's not going to be good for you, I promise.
No, or an asphalt parking lot will work too.
I tell you what, even better way to start is straight braid. Straight braid is going to be easier to skip, in my opinion. But you got to run like a 50 or 60 pound braid.
Problem I have with straight braid is when it does backlash, sometimes it's game over. Like it ties some kind of crazy knot in it. But
yeah,
you're right.
I'm better at picking out backlashes on my braid than I am my fluorocarbon.
I'm telling you, the new Lew's skipping reel it's hard to beat. I mean, Andy Montgomery knows a little bit more about it than any of us, and just that shallow spool. I mean, there's not enough line there. And I remember, Gabe, we had this conversation. You were like, well, what if you want to make a long? There's still enough line on there. If you want to make a long cast, you can still make a pretty long cast with it.
You think a long cast isn't very long.
I mean, you can't make a long cast at Table Rock and let it sink to 40 feet. But, if you got a brush pile in 12 feet that's 50 feet away from you, you can definitely do that. So
yeah, when you have live scope, you realize that 100 foot isn't very far.
No.
So it's only 30 yards to my bow hunters out there. It's only 30 yards.
Right. So that's like when people say, "Oh, wow, you're fishing 25 feet deep. That seems deep." Well, that's
your boat's 21 foot long.
That's 4 feet longer than your boat. It's not that far. It's not that deep.
That's how I had to get it through to my dad because he was like, I don't see how I can fish 15, 16 foot of water. I said, Dad, your boat's 16 foot long. And he's like, yeah, that's not that far, is it? I said, no, it's not. I mean,
No.
Your boat's already sitting a foot down, so now you're even a foot closer.
Yeah. I mean, it's different when you start catching them in 40 and 50 feet. That's takes a little bit more patience, but it don't take long to get used to fishing in 2025.
A Kitech noisy flapper frog is a great trailer on a swim jig. Is a great combo to learn to skip with.
Kitech. A flat frog would skip pretty well too.
Yeah, definitely. So it's just about going out there and trying it. Pick a calm day. Do it without even
practice. Really don't go fishing. Go practice your skipping.
Yeah.
I used to do that all the time at Alton. I'd go into the Alton Marina, take the old Ranger, put the power poles down and set in one spot, listen to the ball game on the radio, and just practice skipping through the same hole for 45 minutes.
And if you got a pond or something to stand on a dock or anything like that, same thing.
Same thing. And don't try to go out there in a chop and do it. It's just, I get big for my britches and try to skip when I shouldn't.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Even the El Conquistador can't skip in a foot chop, I promise.
No.
Nobody can.
No.
You're going to get.
Doesn't mean I'm not going to try, but you're right. You can't. Yeah.
Well, then we all get that super confident and we got the spinnerbait on and we think we can skip a spinnerbait.
No. You can skip a chatterbait. I've heard guys tell me they can skip a buzzbait. I have never been able to skip a buzzbait.
I can skip a buzzbait with a toad on it.
Yeah.
That helps for tremendously.
Definitely.
And a chatterbait's like, that's my skipping bait. I can skip a chatterbait for days.
Right.
Swim jig skip, excellent.
Yep.
And one more point, Brad, is we've kind of been talking about the sidearm skip. There's also the pitch skip, which is really nice out of the back of the boat when you can't really swing through the center.
You're a co-angler. If you're in the back of the boat, you need to learn how to do it underhanded.
It's more of like a sling.
It's a sling, but it's the same pitching motion that you would just pitch with, but you're skipping. You know, you're pulling your rod up high, and the whole thing with pulling the rod up is it keeps, like you were saying, it lifts the line up off the surface of the water
and keeps the bait high.
Right, because what will happen is the thing that runs your skip is your line starts catching the water and dragging and slowing down while your spool's still spinning fast, and that's what gives you that backlash. So when you follow through with lifting your rod, you're encouraging the line to lift up, and that's going to allow your bait to get back in there further. But sidearm and then the pitch skip are the two ones.
And just if you're trying to go farther, it's not harder, it's lower to the water and smoother. It's not harder. Harder is a bad deal, man. Because if you slam the water, it's going to be game over.
Andy made a great comment. Christine Fisher, one of the best at skipping, and she fishes out of a kayak. Being lower to the water helps a ton.
I would say so, yeah.
It's kind of like skipping a rock. Same deal there. So,
yeah, if you can get your hand to be 6 inches off the water when you skip it, you're way better off.
Now, I think she stands up and fishes a lot though too. So she's not always sitting down eye level with the water. So not taking anything away from her, but
no, she fishes standing up most of the time.
Yeah. But you also have to take in core strength and ability to stand in a kayak, and this fat guy doesn't stand in a kayak very well. So
you'd probably fall out of a kayak.
I can gracefully fall out of a kayak every day of the week. Promise.
Cool.
We got a lot of comments about great stream tonight, and this is what this stream's all about, is just three dudes just talking about fishing.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
We don't ever have a agenda.
I didn't think I'd ever make it back on here after you guys got all big time with all the big pros. With
man, I've thought about it so many times, and it's crazy how it works.
I'm privileged to be. This is probably my third or fourth time. I feel so warm and fuzzy inside that I get to be involved in this now that you guys are big time, because you guys have come so far with JT Kenny and Dion and Lawson and Fitzpatrick and all these guys that I freaking worship. That's just awesome.
Hey, we worship.
And to get recognized from this, it just blows my mind.
That's cool.
Hey, we worship those guys too, and I still get giddy and all googly eyed when they come on. So
it's fun.
Yeah,
it's fun
me too. I mean, but they're just people, man. Dion is the salt of the frickin' earth, man.
Yep.
That whole Hibden family is just, they're one of us. It's kind of like Swindle. He's Gerald Swindle. He's the G-man, right? You get him one-on-one, he's us. He's just us. He's us. All those guys. That's why this whole small little fishing community in general is just it's mostly good people.
You know, and you talk about G, and he mentions it in a lot of his speeches, is like, this is the one sport that the top of the top, we can go out and do the exact same thing that they're doing today. And we can also see them after they've had a great day on the water and walk up to their boat, shake their hand, ask them for an autograph, say hi to them, and they're going to be cordial, and they're going to do the same thing that we expect. But you can't do that on an NFL field.
No.
You can't do that at NASCAR. You can't do that at an MLB game. This is one of the only sports, if not the only sport, that we can go out there and do the same thing that the pros are doing.
Yep,
So,
100%. And I mean, we may not be able to do it as good, but I mean, like I always say about this, you better get used. I hate losing. And coming from a sports background, baseball, football, hockey, it's Kevin Van Dam's the winningest guy, and he's won like 11% of the time. You got to get used to being humbled. Yeah, and like my team partner, Greg, the greatest guy on the planet, wanting to sell his stuff. It's just humbling sport. It happens, man. I've had days where it looked like I had no idea what I'm doing. I mean, and then you turn around and 2 weeks later, you win a tournament.
Maybe 20 minutes later.
Maybe 20 minutes later, yeah. It's like my golf game. You look 10 minutes, you're like, this guy needs to go to the driving range. And the next guy that sees me 3 holes later is like, man, this guy's good. You know, it's like, it happens. But if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it. You know, that's why your channel helps people get better. Everybody keeps getting better. And I envy all the young guys now that get to watch content like this. I had to read magazines and just use my imagination. And now they can ask questions, you know, they can listen to podcasts, they can watch YouTube channels. It's hats off to the young guys. It's good for them. They're going to be hard to beat that next generation is going to be tough to beat because they got all this information.
Phil says we should do an all-nighter.
He just inspired me.
So I still got almost that much whiskey. We can go all night if you want.
So when you get the new house built, should we do like a BTL 24-hour?
I don't know.
When you get the new house built, if you have me on, we're gonna do it all 3 in the same room. That's
heck yeah.
Yeah, that'd be fun, man. Sure. That'd be fun.
And then we're gonna play some music when it's over, Gabe.
Okay.
I'm gonna get back on my fiddles back here, and it's been a while, but I'm gonna get back in the groove. I don't care if it's just a shuffle and B for 30 minutes. We're gonna do it, whatever.
What's
it is.
Shuffle and B and a gentleman's drink. Can't go wrong with that.
I can do the gentleman's drink. I don't know about the shuffle and B. I don't know what the hell y'all are talking about.
That's just the blues shuffle in the key.
Yeah, we're gonna do a 12-bar shuffle and B, baby.
Yeah. Barry says, tuning in late, met Mike and saw Greg. Great job.
Oh, nice. Nice. Oh yeah, I recognize that smiling mug.
Good deal. Daniel, I'm a fiddle player myself. If I live well,
there you go.
Make a road trip. Have a little
Thanks
band.
to technology, man, we might be able to Skype you in.
That's true. Have to figure out that delay, but we can make it work. Get kind of psychedelic on us.
Drink enough whiskey, we won't notice.
That's true, man. Yeah. All right, man. We got to wrap this up. We got to wrap this up. Thanks, Mike, for coming on. It was good hanging out.
Appreciate it, guys. I love you. I love both of you, man.
Same here, brother. We'll do it again soon. Won't be so long this time.
Hey, JB, me and you haven't been on the water together yet. We got to make that happen.
I'm down anytime.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, man.
We'll see you guys.
All right. Take care, boys. Be good.